Chapter 840. Chu Qingyan felt a little thirsty after explaining the pleasures of life. However, when she saw how excited the three children were, she knew that what she had just said would soon become a reality. After Chu Qingyan walked out of the shop, Cheng Yinluo followed behind her. "Shall we take a walk?" Chu Qingyan asked with a smile. Cheng Yinluo nodded nonchalantly. The wind blew gently, and the willows swayed gently. The two of them walked along the willow bank in Jiangnan. All they could see was the green willow branches and the sparkling river. "Little girl, the field you mentioned just now all sounded good." Cheng Yinluo was no longer as lively as she had been in the shop. Instead, there was a hint of maturity in her smile. Chu Qingyan blinked. "You seem to have something to say." Cheng Yinluo looked at her and smiled. "I can't escape your eyes. That's because your thoughts are written all over your face. Go ahead, I'm all ears." Chu Qingyan spread her hands. "In that case, I'll get straight to the point." Cheng Yinluo stood under a willow tree. She narrowed her eyes and said bluntly, "Although it sounds like you're fully prepared for these 4 fields, I don't know why, but I still feel that you're being a little too hasty." "Oh, tell me about it." Chu Qingyan broke a willow branch and played with it in her hand. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, but it was hard to decipher the meaning behind her smile. Cheng Yinluo nodded and continued, "Because for what I know about you, you won't advance in all 4 fields simultaneously. Instead, you'll break through them one by one. You've always sought stability in the past. Now, you've spared no effort and invested all your manpower and energy. Although the prospects you've analyzed are good, if you stumble, you won't be able to make the cash flow, and all your money will go down the drain. Have you thought about that?" Chu Qingyan took a deep look at the person beside her. Although she was the one who had pulled her into the partnership, she rarely expressed her views on business. She did not expect her to see through the risks behind her so quickly and not be tempted by the prospects she had imagined. It seemed that she had really chosen the right partner. After saying that, Cheng Yinluo looked at her attentively, only to find that she was staring at her without blinking. She couldn't help but be stunned. Then, she saw her suddenly smile. "Yinluo, I know what you're thinking. I'm also very clear about the consequences of losing everything if we're not careful. You can say that I'm taking a gamble this time." "A bet?" Cheng Yinluo was surprised. Chu Qingyan nodded. In fact, she didn't want to reveal this matter so early, but since Yinluo had already asked, she had nothing to hide. "I need a large sum of money in a short period of time. What I earned from continuing the brand is far from enough. I need a lot more." Upon hearing this, Cheng Yinluo was even more puzzled. "As long as we continue to work hard, the money earned from maintaining the brand will be enough for us to spend the rest of our lives without any worries. Why do you want to earn so much money in such a short time? Are you in some kind of trouble?" Chu Qingyan's fingers tightened slightly, and the willow branch bent into a circle in her palm. She stared at her palm and said slowly, "Because I may not have that much time left. Recently, more and more news has been suppressed on Big Ice's desk. The political strife in the imperial court is getting more and more intense, especially after the Sichuan army has been defeated by the enemy. I'm afraid that the days of peace are numbered." "Wait, didn't your highness intend to withdraw from the political strife?" Cheng Yinluo was shocked. Chu Qingyan smiled faintly. "Sometimes it's one thing to make one's own decision, and another to be forced by circumstances. Big Ice suppressed the news because he didn't want me to worry. But how could I not know how bad the situation is now?" As she spoke, she turned to look at the bustling streets of Jiangnan behind her. Her voice became faintly discernible. "Look at this place. The people are living and working happily, unaffected. In fact, it's just the calm before the storm. You mean to say that you have to be fully prepared to help His Highness when the time comes?" Cheng Yinluo suddenly understood why she was doing this. Chu Qingyan did not deny it. "Didn't you say that I am a person who likes to plan before acting? That's why the 4 major domains are my preparations. Perhaps you feel that I am being too hasty, but please believe me, I will not let you guys suffer any losses. This matter has been in my mind for a long time, and I have already made the necessary preparations. As long as we work together in the end, everything that I have said today will become a part of our business. Cheng Yin Luo stared blankly at the person in front of her. She was clearly the same age as her and younger than her, but she was always able to say such shocking things. So what the little girl meant was that she didn't know if Xiao Su would participate in the political strife in the imperial court, but she had to prepare for the worst possible outcome for Xiao Su. Money. No matter what she did, she couldn't do without money, especially at certain special times. This little girl was always full of surprises. Since you said so, as a friend, how can I sit back and do nothing? If I lose the bet, I'll just go back to the medical hall and continue to be a doctor. Anyway, the good life I have now is because of you. But if I win the bet, then I can live a good life. Cheng Yin Luo winked at her. Chu Qingyan nodded with a smile. Her gaze turned to the sparkling river, and a wave of heat surged in her heart. This time, she would give it her all. Meanwhile, Cheng Yin Luo looked at her with a gentle gaze. Little girl, I hope that your efforts for Xiao Su won't be in vain. The days passed in such a lively manner. Business has been good recently. Why don't we go out for a meal? By the way, I want to visit the Fengyue brothel today. I heard that there are a few artists who are quite good-looking. Let's go and have a look. Cheng Yin Luo stood up from behind the desk, stretched, and walked out in high spirits. Chu Qingyan pointed at her back and said to Hua Xiaoli, "She's restless again." I knew she couldn't control her temper. Hua Xiaoli raised her eyebrows lazily and said in a light voice, "I'm not going. It's boring." With that, she stood up and drifted past Cheng Yin Luo at a leisurely pace. Cheng Yin Luo looked at Hua Xiaoli suspiciously and then cast a questioning look at Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan spread her hands, indicating that she didn't know. Because there was one less person, Cheng Yin Luo had to give up on her plan to visit the artists. During dinner, Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su ate at the same table. What has Lord Lin been busy with recently? Chu Qingyan thought of Hua Xiaoli and couldn't help but ask the person beside her. What do you want to know? Xiao Su looked at her with his chopsticks paused in his hand. I feel that Hua Xiaoli's mood has been unstable recently. It must have something to do with Lord Lin, so I want to help her. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes and suddenly remembered that Big Ice Cube had asked her what she wanted if they were to get married. She couldn't help but tilt her head and smile. Big Ice Cube, let Fengyi and Hua Xiaoli be our groomsmen and bridesmaids. It seems that I have to do something. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes and said something inexplicable. Lin Fengyi and Hua Xiaoli suddenly shivered. Chapter 841. In less than 2 days, the sunflower seeds were placed in front of Hua Xiaoli and the others. Are these the sunflower seeds you were talking about? Cheng Yin Luo reached out and took one out. It looked like a small pebble, but it had gray stripes. It looked very unappetizing. Hua Xiaoli, Yang Xiaohuan, and the others looked at Chu Qingyan in bewilderment. Chu Qingyan didn't explain. She took one and cracked it open with her teeth. Then, she rolled the seeds in her mouth and chewed. She sighed and said, "Delicious." The other 3 followed suit. When they tasted the fruit, they were instantly shocked. Then, they picked up another one and ate it. They couldn't stop eating as if they were possessed by gluttons. Wow, this is the first time I've eaten such a delicious snack. Qingyan, I'm impressed. Hua Xiaoli gave her a thumbs up as she continued eating. This is unheard of. You're too good at finding treasures. Cheng Yin Luo quickly stuffed the seeds into her mouth. Yang Xiaohuan, on the other hand, used her actions to prove her master's praise. However, compared to the other 2, she ate much more gracefully. So, do you have any objections to my eating now? Chu Qingyan leaned against the main seat with a folding fan in her hand. Her index finger hooked the pendant at the end of the fan. She swung the folding fan in a flirtatious manner. The 3 of them looked at each other and gave her a thumbs up in unison. Chu Qingyan smiled freely and elegantly. Sometimes, facts spoke louder than words. I've already told them how to fry the sunflower seeds. When the time comes, as long as you don't let anyone leak it, our market will be huge. However, sunflower seeds alone aren't enough. At this point, Chu Qingyan turned to Hua Xiaoli and said, "Xiaoli, use your connections to find a pastry expert. We have to expand the snack industry." Then, she instructed Cheng Yin Luo, use your medical skills to research a few healthy snacks. We have to go the route that no one else has taken. After that, Chu Qingyin called out to young Xiaowan. Xiaowan, I'll give you 10 days to help me recruit people. You can't just make up the numbers. They have to go through a selection process. The most important thing is loyalty. The sooner the better, because we'll be investing in manpower and resources soon. The three of them nodded and accepted the task. They didn't know when it started, but Chu Qingyin stood out among them and became the leader. It should be her ability. She was smart, knowing how to seize opportunities and understand the psychology of customers. She had endless creative ideas. It was just like how some people were born to be leaders, and Chu Qingyin was the one they looked up to. They were willing to submit to her. After assigning the tasks, everyone dispersed. Because time. After reviewing the recent accounts, Chu Qingyin stretched and stood up. It was already evening. She walked out of the door. Jean Xian, who was standing at the side, immediately followed. She wondered if Big Ice Cube was anxious from waiting. Chu Qingyin strolled along the street. The sun was about to set. Before the afterglow dissipated, the lanterns at the end of the street were lit up one by one. The wind at night was slightly hot, and the clothes of the commoners who passed by were getting thinner and thinner. Chu Qingyin raised her head slightly and looked at the roasted clouds in the sky. She thought to herself, summer is almost here. Jean Xian, your subordinate is here. How long have you been by my side? Chu Qingyin asked casually. For years and 8 months. Jean Xian accurately reported the time. Chu Qingyin smiled. Time flies. I didn't expect you to still remember. Your subordinate's life was saved by you. I will never forget it. Jean Xian replied respectfully. Chu Qingyin sighed softly. You have helped me a lot over the years. Don't mention the things of the past. Have you recalled any memories of the past? Jean Xian paused. Some time ago, there were some shadows in my mind. I don't know if they are memories of the past. But recently, I can't recall them. Chu Qingyin's gaze froze. Then, she smiled brightly at him. If you remember, you can tell me. I can help you find your family. Thank you for your kindness, master. But this subordinate doesn't want to know about the past. Jean Xian replied seriously. Although Chu Qingyin didn't understand, she didn't ask. If you need anything, just tell me. I will do my best to help you. Yes. Jean Xian replied. He continued to look around vigilantly to protect his master's safety. Chu Qingyin saw that he really didn't care and sighed softly in her heart. When she couldn't find out Jean Xian's identity, Big Ice Cube said that someone was deliberately covering up his past. So she thought that to be able to hide from Xiao Lai Chi and do something under their eyes, his identity shouldn't be simple. She had been waiting for Jean Xian to remember the past, but she didn't expect that she would wait for 5 years. She wasn't someone who liked to interfere with other people's private lives. But in these years, Jean Xian and Xining's relationship seemed to be getting closer. Although she thought highly of this pair, she couldn't allow any accidents to happen. She didn't want the two of them to suffer. Now that she saw that he didn't seem to care, she couldn't help shaking her head and laughing. It seemed like she was worrying too much. Jean Xian's heart was firm. Maybe if something really happened, he would be able to handle his own matters. Forget it, we'll talk about it when the time comes. She clasped her hands behind her back and slowly walked towards the residence. Just as she entered the residence, the anxious Hualing came up to greet her. My great aunt, why are you back so late? Master is about to send someone to find you. Chu Qingyin's head began to hurt when she heard this. Aren't I back now? Don't worry, I'll go find His Highness now. Hualing followed beside her and nagged. Little princess consort, this subordinate isn't talking too much, but we don't lack money. You don't need to work so hard, otherwise master will be heartbroken. As soon as he said this, he met a pair of eyes with a ghost of a smile. Little princess consort, did this subordinate say something wrong? Hualing, have you noticed that you're becoming more and more like an old maid? After she finished speaking, Chu Qingyin looked at him from head to toe before she left. Hualing came back to his senses and tears flowed down his wide face. Isn't this subordinate worrying so much for you and master? This subordinate is a respected cavalry lord. How can you compare me to an old maid? Heavens, Hualing felt like his knee had been hit by an arrow. Sob, sob. He wanted to find Turin for comfort. Jean Xin looked at Hualing, who looked like he had been struck by lightning. He shook his head and followed his master in front. They quickly arrived at the courtyard. Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and walked in. She had already prepared herself to be lectured by the big ice cube. But when she looked up and saw the person sitting at the table, she couldn't help being stunned. Kai, come over quickly. I've been waiting for you for so long that I've almost starved to death. Father Chu happily waved at her. Mother Chu on the side smiled and said, We came together today. Go wash your hands and prepare to eat. Chu Qingyan looked at a certain person and silently moved over. Chapter 842. Chu Qingyan had just sat down when her father put a large piece of fish in her bowl. Eat more. You've been so skinny lately. Dried fish. That was an exaggeration. Chu Qingyan's father didn't stop. He picked up a crab leg and put it in Xiao's bowl. You have some too. Don't be jealous. Chu Qingyan clearly saw the corner of his mouth twitch. She remembered that he didn't like seafood, and the crab leg wouldn't look very elegant when he ate it. She thought that he would probably throw it away in disgust. But the outcome was unexpected. Big Ice Cube picked up the crab leg and slowly peeled the shell. He slowly picked out the crab meat and put it in her bowl. Chu Qingyan's father nodded in satisfaction. His son-in-law was taking good care of Kai. How nice. Chu Qingyan's mother looked at the two of them and felt even more relieved. Chu Qingyan quietly lowered her head and ate the crab meat. He was the one who didn't want to eat it. But Big Ice Cube's culinary skills were really good. If it were her, she would probably have to bite the crab leg into pieces, and it would be difficult to pick out the crab meat. This crab meat was really delicious. She was greedy. Then Xiao's bowl was filled with a lot of crab legs. Xiao looked up at her. Chu Qingyan picked up another crab leg and put it on top of her head. She smiled at him fawningly. She was really a little foodie. While Mr. and Mrs. Chu were still in shock, he continued to peel the crab's shell slowly without making any noise. The difficult crab shell was peeled off by his fingertips, revealing the tender white and red meat inside. Chu Qingyan ate the crab meat he handed to her as if it wasn't her place at all. Son-in-law, you have my style back in the day. Chu Qingyan's father stroked his beard and smiled proudly. Chu Qingyan's mother glanced at her husband. How could he say these things in front of the younger generation? Don't worry, I'll take good care of Kai. After peeling the last crab leg, Xiao took a face towel from the side and slowly wiped his fingers. Chu Qingyan ate the delicacies in her bowl while admiring the beautiful man beside her. There were some people who were born noble. No matter what they did, there would always be a kind of noble aura. For example, this person who had just finished peeling shells, which sounded very incompatible with his status, made people feel that his actions were elegant and calm. It was as if he was not peeling shells, but wiping his sword. She sighed as she ate. Indeed, comparisons were odious. She heard every word of the conversation at the banquet, and her face turned slightly red. Big Ice Cube always acted like a gentleman in front of her parents, but in private, he was a bad guy who liked to take advantage of others and was calculative about every little thing. She mistook the rib in her mouth for him and bit down hard. Therefore, after the meal, Mr. and Mrs. Chu came in high spirits and left. I'm going to send father and mother off. Just as she was about to turn around, someone grabbed her collar from behind, and a voice that seemed to be laughing, yet not laughing, entered her ears. Don't go and never come back. Chu Qingyan shrunk her neck. Big Ice Cube is the one who knows me best. Okay. I'll be back soon. After she got her freedom, she immediately followed the person in front of her. Kai, you have to get along well with His Highness. Don't bully him. Mrs. Chu held her hand and said, He's the one who bullies me, okay? Mother, you're helping an outsider. Daughter, if her son-in-law treats you badly, you can tell me. I'll teach him a lesson for you. Mr. Chu said with his hands on his waist and narrowed his eyes. Father is the best. She nodded heavily. But he looks like a good man who protects his wife, just like father. So father is relieved. Chu Machen's father patted his daughter's head and praised himself. Then he left the courtyard happily with his wife. Chu Qingyan was petrified on the spot. The fallen leaves flew and flew, and it was so sad. Sigh. If one day she quarreled with Big Ice Cube, father and mother would definitely think that she bullied him. This was the advantage of having a mother-in-law and father-in-law. Once a family coup happened, everyone would be on the opposite side of her. No, she had to pull Big Ice Cube into her camp. That way, nothing would happen. Thinking of this, she walked back with light steps. When she walked to the center of the courtyard, Little High and Little Annoyance, who had followed her scent, surrounded her. Glutinous Rice Ball and the other two little ones rubbed against her legs and acted coquettishly. Little High and Little Annoyance still didn't like each other. She had been busy with business these 2 days and didn't have time to play with them. She couldn't help but feel a little guilty, because Ethereal said that these animals were very intelligent and could understand human language. They also recognized her as their master. As long as she treated them well, they would follow her. She reached out and patted Little High and Little Annoyance's heads. She said apologetically, "I've neglected you these days. Tomorrow, I'll take you out to play." Little High was very proud and didn't want to be patted on the head. But when it heard that its master wanted to take it out to play, it couldn't help but move its head closer to her palm. Little Annoyance whimpered in enjoyment. As she spoke, Chu Qingyan squatted down and patted by Yutong and Xiu Bao. Then she picked up Glutinous Rice Ball and said with a smile, "I'll take you out for a walk tomorrow. Are you happy?" Glutinous Rice Ball grinned and stuck out its tongue to lick her hand, showing that it was very happy. Right at this moment, a light cough came through the air. Before Chu Qingyan could react, the 5 beside her all cast dissatisfied gazes in the same direction. "Have you neglected them only recently?" As he spoke, a clear breath was already in front of her. Chu Qingyan cried in her heart. Sure enough, he was going to settle accounts with her. Xiao. Translation: You're already an adult, yet you're still fighting with us for our affection. Awoo. Translation: Master belongs to us. The few at the side cried at him in disdain. Xiao Su gave him a look, and they immediately quieted down. Little High and Little Annoyance only looked at each other. Translation: Little Annoyance's eyes. Anyway, Master wants to take us out to play. Let's not lower ourselves to his level. Translation: Little High's eyes. Don't bother with a loser. Let's go. The two who disliked each other reached a rare consensus in the face of a greater threat. After acting coquettishly in front of their master, they raised their chins and arrogantly walked away. When only the two of them were left in the courtyard, Chu Qingyan felt that the silence made her flustered. Just as she was about to say something, a hot chest pressed against her back. I was actually ridiculed by them. Ian, don't you think you should make it up to me? He lowered his head and leaned close to her ear. Chu Qingyan felt that the air was filled with his breath and couldn't help but swallow. Then, you going out with us tomorrow? Her voice trembled slightly halfway because a pair of hands suddenly appeared on her waist. He put his chin on her shoulder and hugged her from behind in a very ambiguous posture. Just this? Not enough. Then you still want what? Before she could finish her sentence, her words were blocked. The moonlight shone down on the two young bodies as they slanted to the ground. The moon couldn't help but hide in the clouds to peek. It really was a hot and affectionate night. Chapter 843. When a moon tore through the clouds and shone down on the earth, the two people under the shadow of the tree separated. She leaned against him and closed her eyes, trying to regain her composure. Have you been busy for the past 2 days? His deep and hoarse voice sounded in her ear. His hoarse voice reminded her of his passionate murmurs just now. The heat that had finally subsided surged up again, and her pink little face was quickly covered with a thin layer of red. She turned her eyes away and replied, "So busy that you don't have time to accompany me?" "Yeah." When she heard the last syllable, it made her breath hitch a few times. She opened her mouth, not knowing how to answer. She knew that her big ice cube was feeling uncomfortable right now. To be honest, when did he become so clingy? Don't change the topic. Xiao Su seemed to have seen through her thoughts as he added a sentence unhurriedly. Chu Qingyan felt a headache coming on. She turned around and squeezed into his arms. She tugged at his clothes and explained in a small voice, Don't you have your own things to do? That seems to be two different things. Xiao Su carelessly played with the hair on her shoulder. No, it's the same thing. You do your thing, and I do mine. She tried to confuse his question. Did I neglect you because of work? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. There was a smile in his eyes, but he liked to see the little fellow jumping around. She gulped. If she really wanted to argue, he really didn't. No matter how busy the big ice cube was, he had never neglected her. Unless they were going out, he would accompany her for every meal. If there was anything good, he would send it to her first. He always put her matters first before dealing with his own matters. Seeing that the person in his arms was speechless, Xiao Su finally couldn't help but chuckle softly. Chu Qingyan heard the deep chuckle from his thick chest and reacted. Okay, you're teasing me. Xiao Su reached out to hold her little fist and lock his eyes on her. He dragged out his voice and said, Don't you feel guilty about neglecting me because you've been busy recently? Chu Qingyan wasn't stupid. She could tell that he was teasing her. But now that she thought about it, she did feel guilty. She took the initiative to wrap her arms around his neck and smiled sincerely. Okay, I was wrong. It's just that I've been expanding my field recently, and I've been really busy. You said that you would let me do what I like. You can't go back on your word, right? That doesn't deprive you of your right to be by my side. Xiao Su gently tapped her nose and smiled. After I'm done with my work, I'll spend some time with you, she negotiated. Xiao Su pondered. Chu Qingyan panicked. Big iceberg, you can't be like this. Xiao Su sighed. Sure enough, I'm not as important as your career. She was embarrassed. Big iceberg, it's fine if you're jealous of Little Hai and the rest, but now you're not even letting go of my business. I didn't realize that you had the potential to be clingy in the past. She lifted her finger and poked at his chest as she teased him. You can call this the fun between lovers. As soon as he said that, her fingers forgot to move. She just stared at him blankly. Was she hallucinating? Big iceberg actually said something like that? She must be dreaming. Xiao Su chuckled and pecked her pink lips. Then he hugged her body and the smile in his eyes faded. He said softly, Don't tire yourself out, because my heart will ache. Because I know the reason behind you doing so much, my heart will ache even more. When she heard that, she knew that he acquiesced to what she had just said. Chu Qingyan nodded in his arms and smiled sweetly. The next day, Chu Qingyan had just opened her eyes and was about to get out of bed when she was startled by the lineup in front of the bed. Little Hai, Little Annoyance by Yutong, Snowflake Cake, and Glutinous Rice Ball were lined up in a row. They stared at her without blinking, as if they were sending her a message. Master, didn't we agree to go out and play today? She really wanted to facepalm. They were here to collect debts. When they saw that she had woken up, the five of them immediately shook their heads and wagged their tails against her hand. Translation, Master, the sun is shining on your butt. Hurry up and get up. Chu Qingyan could only accept her fate and get out of bed. Sure enough, it wasn't easy to be a poop picker. How did you guys get in? The door was clearly closed. Little Hai looked at her with disdain. Then Glutinous Rice Ball cleared her doubts and barked at the wide, open window. Chu Qingyan sighed. It seemed like she had to prevent fire, theft, and window flips in the future. After brushing her teeth and washing her face under the covetous gazes of the five, Chu Qingyan walked to the door and opened it. The morning sun instantly shone in. She couldn't get used to the light and squinted her eyes. Then, she saw a figure standing against the light. After seeing clearly, Chu Qingyan choked on a mouthful of blood. Heavens, even Big Ice Cube came to collect debts. She clearly didn't want to run away, so why were they all afraid that she would run away? Good morning, it's not early anymore. Let's get ready to leave after eating. Xiao Su turned around and said to her. The slightly raised corner of his mouth seemed to hide a deeper meaning. Chu Qingyan accepted her fate again. When they were about to leave, Chu Qingyan looked at the three little ones nestled in her arms, resting their chins on her arm and rubbing against her feet. Then she looked at Big Ice Cube, Little Hai, and Little Annoyance. She touched her nose. This situation seemed to be a bit tricky. Why don't you let them sit in their own carriage? Xiao Su frowned. Chu Qingyan immediately reached out to calm the five little ones that were a bit restless because of Big Ice Cube's words. Then she gave a faint sigh. Do you think the possibility is high? Xiao Su choked. He could imagine that the 5 of them would definitely follow. He gave up on this idea. But seeing the little ones calmly enjoying the comfort of the little ones, Xiao Su was a bit unhappy. He reached out and quickly picked up the 3 little ones on her legs, arms, and feet. Then he threw them onto the soft couch on the side. Then with a bit of strength, he pulled her into his embrace. After doing all of this, he leaned against the wall of the carriage in satisfaction. In the blink of an eye, they left their master's side. How could they be happy? Very quickly, they began to fight for their master. In an instant, the entire carriage was shaking so much that it was about to fall apart. I knew it. With little annoyance and the others here, they wouldn't be peaceful. Hualing smiled in schadenfreude. As soon as he said this, a white ball was thrown out of the window and accurately landed on Hualing. Hualing did not move. The white ball used his shoulder and jumped back into the carriage. It was another life and death struggle. Hualing looked at his torn clothes, and a row of crows flew over his head. Turin shook his head. Serves you right. In the end, Chu Qingyan sat on Xiao Su's lap. Bai Yutong and Snowflake Cake were lying at her feet. Glutinous Rice Ball was nestled in her lap, and Little Annoyance was lying on the side. Little Hai stood on the side and coldly watched. He let out a snort. Stupid. There were a few words written above Chu Qingyan's head. It really was too big to cry. Chapter 844. When they arrived at their destination, there were already people waiting there. Qingyan's family. Oh, what a cute little fox and a big eagle. The cheers from Xiao drifted over along with the summer wind. Xiao Su paused as he got off the car. He narrowed his eyes and glanced at the person waving vigorously. He turned to look at the person behind him. Why is this noisy person here? Hearing Big Ice Cube's unhappy voice, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but gulp. She laughed and said, when Xiao sent someone to get the account book last night, I mentioned it casually. I didn't expect her to come today. I don't want to see her. Xiao Su snorted. Why? Isn't it more lively with more people? Chu Qingyan couldn't figure it out, but Chu Qingyan was a little angry at how he treated his friend. Seeing the 2 of them dilly-dallying, Xiao walked over quickly. She happened to hear the 2 of them talking. Her lips curled into a smile that was asking for a beating. So you want to have your own world. But unfortunately, I'm going to be the big lantern today. After saying this to Xiao Su, Xiao bumped Chu Qingyan with her shoulder and teased, Oh, your family's possessiveness is quite strong. As soon as she said this, she felt a gaze colder than the coldest winter. Chu Qingyan looked at Big Ice Cube faintly. So Big Ice Cube was here because of this. All right, since you're already out today, let's have fun. Don't put on such a long face. She reached out and hugged his hand, indicating that for her sake, he shouldn't make things difficult for Xiao. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He couldn't put the little fellow in a difficult position. He reluctantly agreed. His handsome eyes glanced to Xiao. I'll leave these few to you. Xiao's eyes widened. The person who spoke had already dragged his little wife away in large strides. Heavens, how can this person be like this? I'm here to take a stroll, not to serve your pet. Xiao stomped her feet angrily at the backs of the 2 people. Unfortunately, they were already far away. She left Xiaohai, Xiaofan, and the others staring at her. Speaking of which, your master was pulled away just like that. Don't you want to chase after him? Don't you want to share this wonderful time with your master? Don't you think that the person who took over your master is very hateful? Do you want to teach him a lesson? The more Xiao spoke, the more spirited he became. His eyes were shining as if he could foresee Xiao Su being bullied to the point where he couldn't even call for help. However, she didn't notice that the few crouching on the grass had already turned around to play by themselves. When she finished speaking, she realized that there was nothing in front of her. Hey, aren't you going to take revenge? Xiao roared angrily at the few of them. Xiaofan had already taken the 3 little ones to catch butterflies. Only Xiaohai, who was about to spread his wings and fly high, turned around and rolled his eyes at her. The expression translated, Master has already brought us out to play. Why should we ruin her date? Idiot. Then Xiaohai flew away. Although she didn't understand the animal language, Xiao Li seemed to understand that expression. She instantly withered in the wind. She just wanted to take this opportunity to walk around and relax. Why did everyone bully her? Even the animals were laughing at her. She didn't want to live anymore. Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su had already walked a distance and stopped. She turned around and saw Xiao Fan and the others happily flapping their wings and Xiao Hai soaring in the air. She couldn't help but smile. I've been busy all this time and haven't brought them out to play. I feel like I owe them. Little annoyance, and the others were brought back by her father. She felt that snow foxes were social animals and should be released back into the forest. Unfortunately, they kept biting her trouser leg and refused to leave. Kongling said that they had recognized her as their master. Looking at their watery eyes, she couldn't force them to leave, so she let them stay. Xiaohai didn't need to be said. At first, it wanted to escape, but in the end, it gave up on returning to the eagle flock. It refused to leave no matter what. She could only accept such a strong subordinate with tears in her eyes. She had originally thought that they were all impulsive and would stir up trouble in the residence. But she didn't expect them to be so patient and not cause any big trouble. They were all just small fights, which made her feel a lot more at ease. Because of everyone's company, life seemed to be fulfilling little by little, and she was no longer lonely. Her gaze moved away from Xiaohai and the others and landed on the person standing under the tree. Her tone was a little hesitant. Big Ice Cube, don't you think Inside Sleeve looks a little lonely? Xiao Su looked into the distance lazily. I think she's quite happy with herself. Big Ice Cube. Chu Qingyan glared at him. Xiao Su said coldly, what does other people have to do with me? Don't forget that you're here to accompany me today. Why did his voice sound a little sour? She sighed. Big Ice Cube, I can't forget my friends when I'm in love. Hearing this, Xiao Su's mood eased a lot. It's not impossible if you want to accompany her, but the last syllable made Chu Qingyan uneasy. But what? It depends on your performance. Xiao Su's gaze fell on her lips, hinting at something. Chu Qingyan felt that his gaze seemed to carry warmth, and everywhere it passed by became hot. In the end, Chu Qingyan covered her face and quickly ran back. Xiao Su licked the corner of his mouth, and then his gaze turned to Inside Sleeve under the tree. He raised his eyebrows slightly. If it wasn't for her appearance, he would be able to have a warm and fragrant jade in his arms today, and not just have a small taste of it. A good spring outing was ruined just like that. Just as Xiao Su was leisurely walking back, Turin rushed over on a horse. When he saw his master, he immediately jumped off the horse and rushed over. Master, something happened to Lord Lin, Turin said with a solemn expression. What happened? Xiao Su stood on the grass and looked at him with a frown. His gaze was cold and unwavering. In the past 2 days, Lord Lin has arrested all the officials and merchants involved in the official salt trade. However, the Liu family was not willing to give up. Before they were arrested, they resisted with their lives and injured many Yamen runners. Even Lord Lin was slightly injured. Turin described the scene at the time. Hearing that his good friend was only slightly injured, Xiao Su's tightly knitted brows relaxed. Have Huoling send some people to assist Fomi. Catch all the fish that escaped and bring them to justice. But don't reveal your identity. Yes. Turin received the order and quickly got on the horse and left. Xiao Su continued to walk forward. When he saw his little fellow's hand in sleeve flower, showing off to him, his eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of light. Sleeve flower and foam, the corner of his mouth slightly hooked up. Sleeve flower inexplicably felt the air become cold. When she looked at Xiao Su again, he still had that cold appearance. Could it be that the mask on his face made her feel malice? She didn't know that she was about to step into a trap. Chapter 845. When Xiao Su walked in front of the two, Xiao didn't know why, but she felt an inexplicable discomfort coming from him. It was as if this person was plotting something against her. Chu Qingyan was the first to speak. She looked in the direction Turin had hurriedly left and couldn't help but be puzzled. Did Turin come to find you for something important? The little fellow's words were exactly what he wanted. He nodded, his expression a bit serious. Phone, he was injured in the process of handling the case. What? How could that be? Then is official Lin's injury serious? Chu Qingyan was shocked. On the side, Huaxiu's expression changed slightly, her lips turning pale. At this time, she couldn't help but stare at Xiao Su, afraid that he would say something bad. Huaxiu's expression fell into Xiao Su's eyes. He raised his brows. You want to steal iron from this prince? You're still too inexperienced. Xiao Su's brows were tightly knitted, his expression worried. It's hard to say. What do you mean it's hard to say? Chu Qingyan still wanted to ask something, but Huaxiu had already cut her off. She bit her lip and was very impatient, fiercely glaring at Xiao Su. If you want to know, then go and see for yourself. But whether he's dead or alive, it doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Xiao Su coldly looked at her. When these words fell, Huaxiu was startled, as if Xiao Su had stepped on her little tail, but she forgot to jump up and refute. Chu Qingyan noticed that Huaxiu's expression wasn't right. She couldn't help but reach out to tug at the sleeve of the person beside her. She glared at him, indicating that he shouldn't say anything else. Xiao Su clasped his hands behind his back, turning his back to the two people. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. She didn't know what was wrong with him today, speaking so aggressively. Just as she was about to apologize to Huaxiu, she saw that she seemed to have made a decision, then turned her head and said to her, Qingyan, I remember that there's still something I haven't done, so I'll go back first. You guys have fun. After saying that, she quickly walked to the side and led her horse away. She flipped onto the horse's back and quickly went back the way she came. TSK, before he could say anything, the other party left in a hurry, as if his eyebrows were on fire. Chu Qingyan couldn't stop her, so she could only vent her anger on the people around her. What's wrong with you today? It's like you've eaten a firecracker. I don't think I've done anything to provoke you. As soon as she finished speaking, the person who was carrying her turned around and smirked, looking pleased with himself for having succeeded in his scheme. She took you for herself, which means she provoked me. Chu Qingyan glared at him. How much jealousy are you going to get in the future? I don't want to be in a vat of vinegar with you every day. Xiao Su pondered for a moment. After a while, he seemed to have found the answer. If no one except me can get close to you within 3 feet of you, then I think your worries won't be valid. It was really enough, but she didn't know why, but it sounded so sweet in her heart. She reluctantly regained her train of thought and looked worried. Do we need to go back? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Go back for what? Isn't official Lin injured? We should at least go and see him. Wait a minute. She looked at him suspiciously. Why don't you look worried at all when official Lin is injured? Are you hiding something from me? Xiao Su smiled, took her hand, and walked forward slowly. There was a light smile in his voice. He won't die for a while. How can you say that about your friend? I've already sent the person he wants to see the most. This is already the best consolation for him. Tisk, Big Ice Cube, you're so cunning. She finally understood and couldn't help but look at him with admiration. Do you still think that I bullied your friend? There was a hint of complaint in his calm tone. Chu Qingyan shook her head repeatedly. Big Ice Cube is the best. Then what's the reward? A certain person came over. Shameless. She pushed his face away, but she couldn't get rid of his hand. She could only let him hold her hand tightly. The sunlight shone on the two of them, plating them with a layer of golden pink halo. The light spots jumped on their sleeves, shoulders, hair, and cheeks. The two figures were elongated on the grass. Then they gradually got closer, closer, and closer. In the end, they seemed to merge together. A light breeze blew, and the grass fluttered. On the grass, the 3 little ones raised their claws to cover their eyes, and then secretly revealed the gap between their claws. Little Trouble looked into the distance, as if it saw something. It raised its head and howled happily. Little C circled in the air and really wanted to roll its eyes. It was really taking advantage of its master all the time, but it couldn't help but raise its head and howl, feeling refreshed. 10 fingers interlocked, holding hands. I want to grow old with you. Compared to the warmth on the grass, Huaxiu's side was burning with anxiety. She drove the horse to the city as fast as she could. Xiao Su's words just now still echoed in her ears. She shouldn't have left in such a hurry. She should have asked first. She was a little annoyed. She didn't know how Lin Fengyi was. Xiao Su's words were ambiguous, and it sounded very serious. When she thought of this, she swung her whip with all her might. She was anxious. This was the first time she felt that the road was so long that she lost her patience. She finally reached the Lin residence, but she and her horse were blocked at the door. "Let me in. I have something to ask your master." Xiao got off the horse and frowned as she looked at the two guards blocking her way. These two guards naturally knew Xiao, but they definitely couldn't let her in. "Young Master Hua, if you have something to say, you can visit another day. It's not convenient for my master today." Garde persuaded. "I must see him today," Xiao said stubbornly. Garby shook his head and said, "Young Master Hua, even if we let you in, you won't be able to see my master." These words made Xiao's heart skip a beat. Could it be that Lin Fengyi was seriously injured and couldn't see anyone? Is his injury very serious? Xiao asked, her voice carrying a sobbing tone. A sour feeling filled her heart. She felt like her eyes were covered in fog, and she couldn't see anything. Garde and B looked at each other. How should they explain this to her? The way the two of them stammered made Xiao's heart hang high in the air. She couldn't care about it anymore. She fiercely pushed the two of them away and charged into the residence. She wanted to see Lin Fengyi. She wanted to see Lin Fengyi. She wanted to personally see if he was dead or alive. Garde and B never thought that this delicate girl would be so strong, instantly pushing them away. When they reacted, they wanted to go forward and grab Xiao. The higher-ups had orders that no one could casually enter the residence during this time. At this time, Hualing walked out of the residence and saw this scene. After thinking for a bit, he raised his hand for the two guards to return to their original positions. Xiao had already taken this chance to charge into the residence. "Sir Hualing, this doesn't seem good," Guard hesitantly said. "I'll take responsibility if anything happens." Hualing waved his hand. After checking the guards, he slowly turned around and entered the residence. Chapter 846. With Hualing's instructions, Xiao unimpeded her way to Lin Fengyi's courtyard. Just as she arrived at the door, she saw a basin of blood being carried out. Her body swayed slightly, and she almost lost her footing. Fortunately, she reached out to hold on to the door pillar and steadied herself. The Lin family's old steward was outside, giving instructions to the servants. When he looked up and saw Xiao's pale face, he was puzzled as to how she came in. Xiao also saw him and quickly ran over. She grabbed the steward's sleeve and asked in a panic, "Steward, Sir Lin, how is his injury?" The old steward could hear the genuine concern in her voice and couldn't help but sigh heavily with a sad expression. This old servant also doesn't know. When Sir was sent back, his entire body was covered in blood. Right now, Miss Chung is looking after him. I hope that Bodhisattva will protect our Sir and ensure his safety. Xiao's mind went boom, and she forgot to react. She leaned against the pillar and barely supported her body. Her hands covered her face with a distressed expression. How could this be? Inside the room, Chung Yinluo was currently bandaging Lin Fengyi's wound. She frowned and said, "I seem to have heard a sound from Xiao. Lin Fengyi's internal energy was higher than Chung Yinluo's, so he could clearly hear the sound outside. Although his face was pale, his spirit was still good. He smiled faintly. She's outside, and she sounded very worried about him. The little girl was right. There's something fishy going on between the two of you." Chung Yinluo smiled and looked at him. She tied a knot on his arm and then stopped. She looked outside and said with a faint smile, "Do you need my help?" Lin Fengyi met her eyes. The two foxes were of the same species, so they immediately understood each other. "Then I'll have to trouble Miss Chung." Lin Fengyi smiled slyly. Chung Yinluo rubbed her chin, "But I want a reward. Moreover, it's something like betraying a friend, so the reward will be doubled." "Miss Chung, please speak your mind." Lin Fengyi smiled faintly. "Okay, deal." Chung Yinluo instructed the servants in the room, then lowered her head and left with a medicine box. Because Lin Fengyi was receiving treatment, Xiao didn't dare to rush in. However, the wait was fraught with anxiety. especially when she saw basin after basin of blood being brought out. Her heart sank, and she became more and more panicked. At this moment, Cheng Yinluo walked out, as if she had seen her savior. She took a step forward and grabbed her hand, asking anxiously, "How is he?" Cheng Yinluo couldn't bear to look at her. In the end, she said painfully, "I've already given him my all, but it was already too late when I sent it here. It's just a momentary recovery of consciousness." So, Huaxiao only felt the other's lips open and close, but she couldn't hear what she was saying. Cheng Yinluo placed a hand on the back of her sister's hand and shook her head with a sigh. "Let's prepare for the funeral." Huaxiao's legs went soft, and he almost collapsed. Cheng Yinluo reached out to support her, but she couldn't care less. She struggled to regain her balance and rushed into the room. Cheng Yinluo kept her head down, trying to stifle her laughter. She only dared to laugh out loud when he entered the room. "Huaxiao, oh Huaxiao, I didn't expect you to have such a day." After she was done laughing, she looked back at the room and thought of Lin Fengyi, who was dressed like a clear and bright moon. She couldn't help but shake her head. Huaxiao and the little girl had both fallen for such a clever and cunning person. However, the little girl was a wolf, while she was a fox. She carried the medicine box and left leisurely, thinking about how much she should ask for when she returned. Today, Turin couldn't find Ethereal and called her over. She didn't expect that it was just a sword wound. She thought that she wouldn't be able to get a lot of treatment fees, but it turned out to be a fat sheep. She didn't know that not long after, the tables would turn on her. However, compared to Huaxiao, who was scared but not in danger, she was the one who was truly heartbroken and overwhelmed with grief. As soon as Huaxiao stepped into the room, she saw the pale-faced person lying on the bed. He was lying there straight as a ramrod, seemingly lifeless. She couldn't help but cover her mouth and whimper softly. A few days ago, he was still shamelessly hugging her, saying that he hadn't rested for a few days and wanted her to accompany him for a while. But now, he was lying there lifelessly. Her heart ached fiercely. She walked with her heavy legs and approached him step by step. Finally, she squatted down in front of his bed and reached out to touch his face. The person who closed his eyes slowly opened them. When he saw the person squatting in front of him, the corners of his mouth slowly lifted into a smile. "You're here." Hearing this hoarse voice, Huaxiao suddenly missed his voice in the past, although he always said some infuriating words. She wanted to respond to him, but tears fell before she could say anything. She could only nod. "Silly girl, why are you crying?" Surprise flashed across Lin Fengyi's eyes, followed by surprise. However, it was quickly covered by the pain in his eyes. Huaxiao used her sleeve to wipe her face, but more tears fell. Finally, she looked at him in despair and said in a sad tone, "Lin Fengyi, why didn't you protect yourself?" He raised his hand strenuously and wiped her cheek with his fingertips. "There were too many of them. I couldn't hide. You're a magistrate. Why didn't you let someone else do it? Why did you follow them?" She cried. Seeing that she was genuinely sad, he patiently explained, "I didn't know that they would act out of desperation. Moreover, as the leader, I should have taken the lead." She cried even harder. "So you threw your life away there. How can you be like this? Aren't you afraid of making your family worry? My parents died when I was young. I have no family by my side and no one to worry about." He chuckled softly, as if he was mocking himself. Huaxiao couldn't bear to hear him say this. She reached out to hold his hand, tears blurring her eyes. "What are you saying? Don't you have friends, housekeeper, and me? I remember that you hate me, so you don't have to comfort me." Lin Fengyi sighed and added, "I'm already very happy that you can come to see me for the last time." She shook her head. "Although you have a bad temper and a lot of logic, I don't hate you. I lied when I said that I don't want to see you and that I hate you. Lin Fengyi, don't die, okay? Don't die, okay?" She was sobbing uncontrollably, her grief like a river. Lin Fengyi didn't expect that his injury would bring him such a pleasant surprise. He suppressed the joy in his heart, but his face was still sad. "Even if you're comforting me, I'm still very happy." Huaxiao shook her head. "I'm not comforting you. You can't leave me alone. You can't abandon me when I've fallen for you. How can you be so cruel?" Lin Fengyi, you can't die. Silly girl, is what you said true? You said that you like me? His voice of surprise was no longer as weak and pale as before. Hua Xiao subconsciously wanted to nod, but then she realized that something was wrong. She looked up. Her eyes were even brighter after the tears washed away, but at this moment, she saw a handsome face with a radiant glow. Chapter 847. Hua Xiao blinked. Although the person in front of her looked pale, he seemed to be in good spirits. Is this the final radiance of the setting sun? Lin Fengyi did not hear her reply. His eyes flashed, and he covered his chest with his hand, pretending to cough. She threw her doubts to the back of her mind when she saw his expression change slightly. She hurriedly supported him and said anxiously, "You're injured. Don't speak first." Lin Fengyi obeyed her words and closed his eyes to ease his pain. Hua Xiao could not help but cry again. Lin Fengyi. Lin Fengyi listened to her sorrowful voice, and his brows moved. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at her emotionally. "Silly girl, you said that you like me just now. Is it true? You didn't lie to me because I'm dying, right?" His eyes were filled with little bits of light, as if he was using all his strength to seek an answer. It was as if the light would dissipate once he got the answer. She bit her lip and looked at him. Wait. Her gaze landed on his arm, then his chest, then back to his face. She seemed to have discovered something. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly. She steadied her emotions. "Are you seriously injured?" Lin Fengyi closed his eyes slightly. "Just like what you saw. Then where are you injured?" She suppressed her anger in her tone. At this moment, Lin Fengyi realized that something was wrong. After a moment of silence, he replied faintly, "My hand." "Silly girl, you've discovered it." Hua Xiao narrowed her eyes and raised her hand to poke his bandaged arm. She said sinisterly, "Do I need to prepare for your funeral?" Pain appeared on his face because of her poke, but he did not make a sound. He knew that he could not hide it anymore. He said calmly, "No need." The smile on Hua Xiao's face disappeared. She stood up abruptly, turned around, and walked out without a word. She had just taken a step when someone grabbed her wrist. "Is it fun to play with me? Is it fun to make people worry? I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Lin Fengyi, I was wrong about you." Hua Xiao abruptly flung his hand away, interrupting his words. The anger that he had been suppressing just now all exploded out. "In my sleeve. I didn't mean that." Lin Fengyi knew that the situation was not going to be easy. He propped himself up and looked at her sincerely. But how could the anger of being deceived be quelled so easily? Hua Xiao angrily pointed at him. "Seeing me cry for you, does it satisfy your sense of revenge? I must have been a fool to feel sad for a heartless, hypocritical villain like you. I don't want to see you again." After saying that, she turned around and left. However, her arm was grabbed again. Hua Xiao didn't even think about it before forcefully pushing her away. Just as she was about to walk forward, she heard a cry of pain behind her. She stopped in her tracks. His hand was injured. She didn't know if she had touched his wound just now. At this moment, the muffled voice of the person behind her made her even more unable to take a step forward. Behind her came the sound of footsteps getting off the bed, and then a pair of strong arms wrapped around her waist and hugged her from behind. "In my sleeve. I didn't mean to lie to you." "You didn't mean to. You did it on purpose. Let go of me." He chuckled. "If you can bear to see my wound open, you can struggle as much as you want." Rascal. Even so, she didn't dare to struggle too hard, afraid that she would touch his wound again. "In my sleeve. I haven't seen you for a while. I miss you very much." He rested his chin on the top of her head. His expression was gentle, and even his tone made the spring breeze soften. This sentence made her anger dissipate by more than half, but she stubbornly said, "You want to use flowery words to make me forget your deception just now? That's impossible. I remember it all. The reason why I lied to you is because I want to know if I'm important in your heart. Is this question very important? So important that you use tricks to deceive me?" She said those words fiercely, but the anger in her heart had already dissipated because of his words. However, when she thought about what happened just now, she felt very awkward. How could it not be important? He was a meticulous person. How could he not feel that her temper had softened? He let go of her hand and turned her body to face him. The person who was usually arrogant actually only reached his shoulders. He had to lower his head to look at her bright eyes. Then I also want to know your answer to this question. When he lowered his eyes, those cold eyes reflected her face. She suddenly mustered up her courage and looked directly into his eyes. Although they were both women, Xiao was more open-minded than Chu Qingyan and more decisive than Cheng Yanluo. Otherwise, she wouldn't have waited for his response after the night they spent together. So at this moment, she didn't mince her words. Her gaze was calm, and it went straight to the depths of his heart. In her eyes, love was love. There was nothing to be ashamed of. Your answer is my answer. He was surprised by her words, but soon his expression softened, and there was a hint of certainty in his tone. Xiao pursed her lips. This guy. It must be because he had designed her true reaction just now. That was why he was so sure. He usually looked so good, but in fact, he was bad to the core. Wait a minute. Only then did she realize what was going on and looked at him in confusion. What's wrong? Lin Fengyi reached out and caressed her face. His expression was gentle. Xiao suddenly smiled slyly. If I say that I don't care about you at all, will your answer be the same as mine? His fingers paused, then slid to her chin. He leaned forward and bit her lips. Little rascal, is it so difficult to admit your feelings? I'm returning those words to you, Lin Fengyi. Is it so difficult to admit your feelings? Xiao was hurt, but she still retorted. Lin Fengyi touched her lips with his fingertips and chuckled. What's there to be afraid of? Xiao, you're destined to be my only wife in this life. His only wife in this life. Xiao's eyes lit up. She felt an inexplicable bitterness and happiness. You're so confident? She smiled. Haven't you been mine since a long time ago? He pointed out. Xiao's face turned red. Shameless. But she seemed to have thought of something, and her expression suddenly changed. She looked at the person in front of her with an unfathomable expression. Lin Fengyi, let me ask you a question. You have to answer me honestly. Although he really wanted to pull her into his embrace and taste her red lips right now, he didn't reject this feeling after not seeing her for a few days. But when he heard the words of the person in front of him and was shocked by her tone, he gently nodded and temporarily suppressed this evil thought. You treat me differently because of that night? Chapter 848. Why do you ask? Lin Fengyi frowned. Xiao looked at him in the eye and said word by word. I remember that before this, whenever we met, we would either be at each other's throats or dislike each other. We had never been harmonious. However, after that night, I felt that your attitude towards me had changed. Is it because you feel guilty towards me and that you have taken away a woman's most precious thing? Do you feel that you owe me something? Is that why you want to make it up to me? Are you willing to make a lifelong promise? Her tone was serious. Although Xiao was sometimes unreliable, that was only in front of her close friends and family. In the eyes of outsiders, she had the cunning and slyness of a businessman. Everything she did was based on profits. Moreover, she had been following her father on the road of business since she was a child. She had been influenced by what she saw and heard, and she was more observant than her peers. She was more mature and steady than her peers. She had seen magnificent places, seen heartless men and heartless women, seen deceit and gratitude. Most of the time, she felt that there were few pure feelings between people. Everything was done with a certain purpose. Perhaps it was because she had been immersed in the business world for many years. Even though her heart was stirred by his words, her mind was still half sober. It was not that she did not believe in his feelings, but her father had once said that no matter what she did, it was a gamble, especially the relationship between a man and a woman. Because there was only one bet. If she lost, she would lose her entire life. Since that was the case, why not be generous and open up all her secrets, take out her heart, and gamble once? She rarely had strong possessiveness because she was Xiao, the young master of Jiangnan's lifeline. She had wealth that others did not have. As long as it was not the stars in the sky or the moon in the bottom of the sea, there was nothing that she could not get. However, she was not willing to compromise. At this moment, Her heart clearly told herself that the person in front of her was the man she liked. As long as she nodded, he would treat her well for the rest of her life. Because he was Lin Fengyi, once he made a promise, he would fulfill it without any hesitation. When discussing business, every clause was accompanied by benefits. This was something she knew since she was young. However, this was the first time she had thought of this. She wanted to know if the person in front of her had sincere feelings for her. No debt, no guilt, no compensation. For the first time, she wanted pure feelings. As for this, what kind of response would he give her? Her heart was tossed high into the air, unable to fall back to the ground before she got an answer from him. This was also the difference between her and Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yinluo. She had always known clearly what she wanted. If she liked something, she would fight for it without any regrets. Are you doubting my feelings for you? Lin Fengyi heard a serious inquiry in her words. It was as if she was knocking on his heart, stubbornly wanting the truest answer. Don't change the topic. Just answer my question honestly. She pushed his fingers away from her sleeve and took a step back. Only when she could no longer smell the disturbing breath on his body did she raise her head to look at him. This was the best distance for negotiation. She had to stay awake and not be confused by his beauty so that she could make the best decision. Lin Fengyi looked at the domineering person in front of him with her arms crossed and her chin raised at him. He couldn't help but want to laugh, but he held it in because he knew that once she found out, this conversation would be over and she would leave without mercy. He was silent for a while before he slowly said, "About what you said just now, it should be your own misconception." "What do you mean?" Hua Shili frowned and looked at him. Lin Fengyi smiled faintly. "You're the one who's going against me. You're the one who doesn't like me. I've never taken the initiative to provoke you." Hua Shili was stunned. She recalled their interactions in the past, and it seemed that he was right. At this moment, the person in front of her had already approached her. That bamboo scent once again lingered around her body. Before she could react, she heard him say with a flirtatious smile, "You remember now? Which time didn't you take the initiative to provoke me?" You're the one who's in the wrong." His tone was full of resentment, but then it became lively again. He rubbed his chin and looked at her suspiciously. "Could it be that you've already taken a liking to this Darren from the start? So it's just like the saying, hitting is flirting and scolding is love?" Listening to his shameless guesses, Hua Shili wondered if her previous impression of him was just an illusion. "You're talking nonsense." As soon as she said that, she fell into a warm embrace filled with bamboo fragrance. "Amen, I'm talking nonsense. Don't be angry." Words that deserved a beating followed. Hua Shili was so angry that she gritted her teeth. She was being teased again. "If it weren't for the fact that you're injured, I would have beaten you to the ground long ago," she said ruthlessly without any deterrence. Lin Fengyi smiled and caressed her back. "Many thanks to young Master Hua for showing mercy." Humph. A moment later, Xiao, hearing him suddenly call her name in a tone that wasn't as frivolous as before, her pupils shrank, and she responded in a low voice. "My feelings for you, although it doesn't have much to do with that night, the idea of being with you for the rest of my life started from that night." As expected, Hua Shili felt a bit cold, even though it was almost summer. He saw the defeat in her eyes. Did this silly girl think that he was feeling guilty again? He paused, and then said in a gentle tone, "Because I had already unknowingly fallen in love with you. It was only that night that I confirmed my feelings for you." Oh heavens, this cold-faced Darren didn't say words of love, but once he did, it made people unable to resist. Hua Shili was already petrified. One moment in hell, the next moment in heaven. This was the feeling she had right now. "My care for you, my intention of being with you for the rest of my life, is not because I owe you, feel guilty, or want to make up for anything. It was just a man's love for a woman that he was willing to love." He reached out and caressed the tears at the corner of her eyes, and his heart softened. "Silly girl, why are you crying? I'm a little scared. Father said that true love has to go through a lot of twists and turns before it can come to fruition. Compared to Qingyan and Yinluo, aren't things going too smoothly for us?" She felt as if she had picked up a treasure. Her silly look pleased him. He tightened his arms and cherished her in his arms as he spoke softly and gently. If you're afraid that I won't know how to cherish you if you're too easy to get, then you're wrong. Hua Xioli raised her head from his arms, her eyes hazy with tears. It turned out that he knew what she was worried about. She was afraid that her love for him and their night together would make him unscrupulous and belittle her feelings. Because if it's too easy to get, you're even more afraid of losing it. In the hazy fog, he leaned over, his eyes full of love and tenderness for her. Hua Xioli couldn't help but close her eyes and bear his gentleness. Chapter 849. After the knot in her heart was untied, Hua Xioli began to settle the score. Although I've accepted your kindness, I won't forgive you so easily for the psychological damage your deceit has caused me. She broke free from his embrace and ordered him to lie back on the bed. Then, she crossed her arms and snorted coldly. Lin Fengyi leaned against the bed and looked at her calmly. Then I'll compensate you. Hua Xioli was going crazy. Your hand is injured, not your brain. He actually said such a thing. Could it be that his brain was damaged? All right, in other words, do you still remember what I said outside the walls of the Chu estate that day? He looked at her with bright eyes. Hua Xioli blinked and was a little confused. However, a corner of her memory opened up and brought her back to that evening, that setting sun, and a certain someone's shameless words. You want me to take responsibility? You really hit your head. Hua Xioli stomped her feet. He was a big man. How could he have the nerve to ask a girl to take responsibility? Lin Fengyi glanced at her. Why not? You're rich and have countless businesses under your name. Are you so stingy that you're unwilling to take responsibility for my innocence that you took advantage of? You're also the magistrate of Jiangnan. The mountain is high and the emperor is far away. You have the nerve to bully a little girl and not take responsibility? Hua Xioli couldn't help but be thick-skinned as she spoke to him. She felt that she couldn't be too thick-skinned when talking to people. Fortunately, she often ran around outside, so her skin was much thicker. That's not the same. Your wealth is in your hands and you're steady. Unlike us, as officials, it's our duty to do well. If we don't do well, it's a dereliction of duty. No one knows when their power will be taken back, so you have to take responsibility for me. Seeing that a certain someone didn't feel embarrassed at all, Hua Xioli felt that she seemed to have met a sly fox that she couldn't get rid of. In terms of skin, she wasn't as thick-skinned as him. She couldn't win against him in an argument. She didn't want to talk to him about this, otherwise she would fall into his trap again. You only injured your arm. Why was there so much blood just now? She looked at his arm again and asked seriously. It was stained with the other party's blood. Lin Fengyi knew that she was uncomfortable and didn't tease her anymore. It sounded like the fight was really dangerous. She moved a chair over and sat in front of him. Concerned and hesitant, she asked, "Does it still hurt?" At this moment, because he had lost a lot of blood, his face was pale and he no longer had his usual healthy complexion. Her heart ached for him. He had said so much to her just now, pulling and hugging her, and he had long used up all his energy. Fatigue appeared on his face, but he forced himself to be alert and shook his head to comfort her. It's okay. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. Even so, Hua Xioli still looked at him worriedly. Lin Fengyi smiled and reached out to hold her fingers. Sleep with me for a while. Hua Xioli was just about to nod when she suddenly thought of something. She felt that the fingers holding her were abnormally hot. She immediately wanted to shake them off. You're already injured. What are you thinking about? Lin Fengyi didn't understand. When he saw her blushing and glaring at him, he realized that the silly girl had misunderstood. What are you thinking? He shook his head. If I really wanted to do something to you, do you think you could escape? His fingers held her hand tightly. He felt that his strength was almost exhausted. Before he closed his eyes, he reminded her, "Don't sneak away before I wake up." Hua Xioli moved her hand, and the hand that was wrapped around his fingers gripped her even more tightly. She looked at his sleeping face and couldn't help but sighed deeply. She had rushed all the way here just now, so she didn't feel anything because of her fear. Now that she was relaxed, she was also a little exhausted. She didn't want him to sleep soundly, so she moved the chair closer and leaned against his bedpost. She closed her eyes and rested quietly. Perhaps the room was too quiet, so she unknowingly fell asleep. After spending a day in their world without anyone to disturb them, Xiao Su brought Chu Qingyin back slowly. Big ice cube. I feel like the sunset is infinitely beautiful. It's just that dusk is approaching. She turned back to look at the setting sun hanging halfway up the mountain and sighed. As soon as she finished speaking, her nose was gently scratched by someone. She returned to her senses and looked at him. Seize the moment, don't waste your time, and have a clear conscience. Didn't you say that yourself? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and said. Chu Qingyin scratched her head. As the saying goes, those who are closely involved can't see clearly. When you talk about others, you always have a lot of reasons, but when it comes to yourself, it's always ineffective. Isn't that always the case? Xiao Su smiled faintly. Let's go home. Okay. She looked up at him and smiled. Her teeth were bright, and her dimples were sweet. When the mountain flowers are blooming, you're smiling in the bushes. Snow Fox Awa. Translation. Master smile is so beautiful. Falcons. Whoosh whoosh. Translation. It's useless. They're all stunned. Stupid humans. By the time they got home, Mr. and Mrs. Chu were already in Xiao Su's courtyard. Father, mother, why are you here? Chu Qingyin asked curiously. She washed her hands in the basin that Xining had brought over. Then she walked over to them and asked curiously. If there was nothing going on, her parents would not leave their courtyard. That was why Chu Qingyin had asked such a question. Mrs. Chu looked at her daughter with a smile. His Highness said that he plans to hold your marriage after you become of marriageable age. Today, your father and I are here to discuss the details. Why didn't anyone tell her? Xiao Su saw through her thoughts and raised his eyebrows. If we had told you in advance, would you still have come out today? Chu Qingyin thought about it and agreed. If she had known that there would be such a thing waiting for her when she came back, she might not have been in the mood to play. The dishes were already on the table. The family of four sat down and discussed the marriage as they ate. Actually, the main speakers were Xiao Su and Mrs. Chu. She was in charge of eating, while her father was in charge of coming up with some weird ideas. Yang Xiaowan, Turin, Hualing, and Jin Ling, who were standing at the side, were in charge of taking notes. But there were so many people present. Talking about business, strategy, military strategy, and killing people was not a problem. But when it came to marriage, no one knew how to buy things. Apart from Mr. and Mrs. Chu, who were experienced people, it was fine as long as Mr. Chu didn't add to the trouble. So it was mainly Xiao Su who was asking Mrs. Chu. Chu Qingyin looked at her mother, who was humbly asking for advice, and her face couldn't help but burn. Yang Xiaowan, Jin Ling, and the others' teasing gazes made her want to bury her face in the bowl of rice. This was a major event in her life, but she had an illusion that she didn't need to worry about anything else as long as she waited to get married. Marriage was a matter between two people, but all the procedures were extremely complicated. As she listened, she felt a headache coming on. She turned to look at the person beside her, only to see that he still had a serious expression on his face as he listened attentively. From time to time, he would ask one or two questions. It was rare that Big Ice could still stay sober. She only knew that after her birthday, everyone would return to Lian City to prepare for the wedding. They had lived in Lian City for 5 years, so they should get married there and have a wedding banquet. At this moment, two handsome horses galloped into Jiangnan from afar. When they reached the last mountain, the leader climbed up the peak and looked at Jiangnan City from afar. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. Little girl, I'm back. Did you miss me? Chapter 850. Chu Qingyin. Hua Xiao tried to call out to the girl who was in a trance, but she didn't respond. In the end, she couldn't help but shout at the top of her lungs. Before Chu Qingyin could come back to her senses, Cheng Yin Luo had already been startled by her earth-shattering roar. She patted her chest and said to Hua Xiao, "Your soul-summoning spell is useless on this girl. She's about to get married, and her soul has already flown off to God knows where." Hua Xiao looked at Chu Qingyin, only to see that Chu Qingyin had merely dug her ears in response to Hua Xiao's roar. Chu Qingyin turned to look at Hua Xiao with a confused expression. Hua Xiao still had the nerve to ask, What happened, Xiao? Cheng Yin Luo was about to go crazy. I've already told you 10 times, no, 11 times about the promotion. You still have the nerve to be distracted and ask me what happened? Oh my God, I want to take a leave. I want to rest. I want to stay away from this demon. Chu Qingyin smiled and patted her shoulder. Her smile was very innocent. You came back this morning with a happy face. I've told you more than 20 times about the promotion plan. So, don't be the pot calling the kettle black. Chu Qingyin finally revealed her evil little fangs. So now you still want to take a leave, rest, and stay away from such an adorable angel like me? Hua Xiao immediately shook her head. This was karma. Cheng Yinluo looked at the two energetic girls and couldn't help but sigh softly. It's so good to be young. Yinluo is still young and as beautiful as a flower. Hua Xiao turned her head and said with a smile, Yeah, sighing will take away your happiness. Chu Qingyin put her hand on Hua Xiao's shoulder and winked at Yinluo. You're indeed people who are nourished by love. Even from so far away, I can see that you're bubbling with happiness. These words of comfort had no effect on her. Hua Xiao stomped her feet. What are you talking about? I can't wait to chop that guy into pieces. Chu Qingyin nodded. Exactly. Wait a minute. Hua Xiao snapped out of her daze and looked at Cheng Yinluo sternly. She clenched her fists and cracked them loudly. I suddenly remembered that you had a part to play in yesterday's incident. What else do you have to say for yourself? Cheng Yinluo thought that this man had already forgotten all about her because he was immersed in the sweetness of love. She didn't expect him to want to settle the score with her now. She looked at the man who was slowly approaching her with a murderous look on his face and said calmly, I feel that I'm innocent in this matter. Lord Lin said that if I didn't cooperate with him, he would make sure that I couldn't open my clinic in Jiangnan. Do you think I'm the kind of person who would betray my friends? Civilians don't fight with officials. It's all in my sleeves. Baby's heart is bitter, but baby won't say it. Hearing this, Hua Xiao said angrily, Lin Fengyi is too much. He actually abused his power to threaten you. The next time we meet, I will definitely avenge you. Cheng Yinluo snickered inwardly, but she maintained an aggrieved expression on her face. All right. Chu Qingyin shook her head as she watched from the side. Hua Xiao was still too inexperienced in front of Yinluo. At this moment, Xining walked in and said to Cheng Yinluo with a smile, Miss Cheng, Lord Ethereal is here. Hua Xiao and Chu Qingyin exchanged glances. Someone was here to deliver love medicine soup again. I won't see him. Just say that I'm not here. Cheng Yinluo saw her friend's gaze and made up her mind. She waved her hand and said. Xining didn't leave immediately. Instead, she continued. Lord Ethereal said that if you say that you're not here, he'll come in after a cup of tea's time. Haha, Ethereal has improved a lot recently. Chu Qingyin didn't give face to her friend and burst into laughter. That's right, that's right. Weren't you just talking about us? Didn't you enjoy it too? Besides, you're much luckier than us. Qingyin's husband is as cold as ice, and Lin Fengyi is recuperating in bed. Even if he's perfectly fine, he wouldn't do something like delivering soup to the shop. We should be the ones envying him. Yinluo, you should be content. It was rare for Hua Xiao to say such a meaningful sentence. Cheng Yinluo flew into a rage out of humiliation. Don't make sarcastic remarks. I don't care about your medicine soup. You've been suffering from allergies for the past 2 days. You'd better listen to the doctor. After all, doctors don't treat themselves. It's rare for the doctor to come in person. He's so considerate. Don't be stubborn. Hua Xiao winked at her. He's not as good as you make him out to be. In terms of medical skills, very few people can compare to him. In terms of character, he is pure and honest. In terms of looks, he is top-notch. You should take him in, lest he harms others. Chu Qingyin couldn't help but smile as she tried to persuade him. All right, we're going to admire the flowers. You stay here. Your face is so swollen. You'd better drink the medicine soup obediently. Qingyin, let's go. Hua Xiao held Chu Qingyin's hand and waved at her happily. Cheng Yinluo was annoyed. She was about to leave when she bumped into someone. Xiaoyan, where are you going? Enemies were bound to meet. Chu Qingyin and Hua Xiao left the shop from the back door. The carriage was already waiting outside. They got on and Xining, Jean Xian, and Fu followed them. I heard that you and Lord Lin have a happy ending. The carriage drove toward the peach blossom forest outside the city. Chu Qingyan was lying lazily on the couch. This was the first time she had asked her that question. I guess so. Hua Xiao's face flushed red like the peach blossoms in March. It was very lovable. Chu Qingyan smiled gently. Who would have thought that the two of you who were at loggerheads the moment you met would end up together? Congratulations. Hua Xiao touched her nose. It's just like how everyone is curious. Your husband is as cold as ice, and you're as gentle as water. How did two extremes end up together? Just like how one knows when to drink water. Chu Qingyan smiled. Hua Xiao nodded. No one can say for sure when fate comes. Let nature take its course. The two of them had just arrived at the peach blossom forest and alighted from the carriage when a figure hurried over. Young Master Hua, Lord Lin is looking for you. Lin Fengyi's personal guard, Li Hu, cupped his hands. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. As expected, he can't be apart from you for even a moment. Hua Xiao's face was sullen. I've never felt that he was so clingy. Chu Qingyan tilted her head and thought for a while. Then, she said, maybe it's only for special people that he would reveal his hidden side. All right, you can go. You're the most injured. What about you? Hua Xiao felt that if she left, it would be a little unkind. I'll allow you to forget your friends for once. Chu Qingyan blinked. All right. Hua Xiao looked back 3 times with each step. In the end, she left with Ah Fu and Li Hu. After watching Hua Xiao leave, she finally turned around and walked towards the peach blossom forest. This was the last peach blossom at the end of spring. Because summer was approaching, there were only a few flowers left on the branches. Going out today, admiring the flowers was secondary. She mainly wanted to walk around and relax her body and mind. Jean Xian and Xining followed behind her, blindly following her. They strolled aimlessly. However, from the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a tall figure in dark purple. He had a lazy and devilish smile, and then she heard a familiar voice. Long time no see, little girl. Her gaze froze, surprised and happy. On a spring outing, apricot blossoms blow all over my head. Which family is young and romantic? Chapter 851. In the depths of the peach blossom forest, a tall figure appeared against the light. The wind blew, and the flowers on the branches were blown down, falling along with the long black hair. The sunlight shone through the gaps between the dense foliage, and the light was vertical and slanted. That person was like a god of freedom, descending from the horizon at dawn. Blessed by the heavens, he had the most holy, mysterious, and devilish temperament. The verdant leaves were behind him, above him, to his left and right. They were so close, yet so far. Even the petals couldn't get close to him. They could only touch his shoulders and sleeves, and then submit to his feet. Are you dazed? Huali's voice was still filled with that familiar, annoying smirk. Chu Qingyan looked at the finger waving in front of her eyes and couldn't help but take a step back. She frowned and stared at the devilish face in front of her. You can scare people to death, don't you know? Every time you suddenly appear, I don't know what kind of habit it is. Higashio Motetsu sneered. If it wasn't for the element of surprise, how could it leave such a deep impression? Chu Qingyan didn't want to respond to his words. She walked forward, and Higashio Motetsu followed beside her, strolling leisurely. Why were you gone for so long? Was the matter very troublesome? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but ask. Back then, he had only left a sentence saying that he had to go back to deal with the sex matters, and then there was no news from him for a few months. Thinking about it, she wondered if he didn't take her seriously as a friend. Higashio Motetsu looked at her strangely. I thought you didn't care about me at all. Chu Qingyan heard the disbelief in his voice and couldn't help but reflect. Did she really ignore him? Jean Xian saw that it was Higashio Motetsu and put down the hand that was holding the hilt of his sword. He was shocked. He hadn't seen him for a few months, and the person in front of him seemed to have improved quite a bit. When he appeared just now, he didn't even notice. He pursed his lips. It seemed that he had to increase the amount of training again. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. Don't talk nonsense. You sent someone to send me a message saying that you would be back after some time. You've been gone for so long. You're the one who doesn't treat me as a friend. Higashio Motetsu broke off a peach blossom branch and casually swung it. Things happened so suddenly. I can't possibly rush into your place just to say goodbye to you, only to be kicked out by the King of England. I can't do such a shameful thing. He shrugged. Chu Qingyan was speechless. He's not that petty. Higashio Motetsu chuckled. He was probably not just stingy. Chu Qingyan waved her hand to let Xining and Jin Xian do whatever they wanted, while she and Higashio Motetsu slowly walked into the depths of the forest. What was a true friend? When they were silent, they didn't feel awkward. After not seeing each other for a long time, they still felt familiar. At this time, Dong Ting gave her such a feeling. You've done well in the continuation of the product. Congratulations. But as soon as I came back, I heard that you were going to shift your focus to other fields. I didn't know that you were so ambitious. Higashio Motetsu stood under a lush peach tree and turned around to ask. Naturally, he looked back with a charming gaze, and all kinds of flirtatious expressions lingered around his eyebrows. Chu Qingyan felt that this person was really becoming more and more enchanting. She withdrew her stunned emotions and stepped forward to his side, admiring the wonderful scenery with him. You also played a part in the continuation of the product. I should say that you're happy too. As for other fields, she looked up and smiled mischievously. No one will complain about having too much money. Of course, we'll earn as much as we can. Just like people who practice martial arts, they pursue the supreme realm. They're always chasing after a higher level, aren't they? I haven't seen you for a long time, and you've become more eloquent. Higashio Motetsu said with a faint smile. It was hard to tell whether he was praising or criticizing her. Chu Qingyan spread her hands. People are always improving. No one will regress. You don't look like a greedy person. Higashio Motetsu's tone was certain. Chu Qingyan blinked. Indeed, I look like a good person. I don't look like a businessman who stinks of money. I look like a distinguished and elegant gentleman. Don't flatter yourself. Higashio Motetsu sneered. His fingers stroked the branches, and the tender leaves on the branches softly pressed against his fingertips. He said casually, I don't believe that there's no reason for every extraordinary thing you do. Since you know, why are you still asking? She spread her hands again. Some people pretend to understand when they're confused, while others pretend to be confused. You're so smart. So, Higashio Motetsu chuckled. There's no need to guess. If it's not for yourself, then it can only be for one person. I'm so smart. Forget it. It's fine as long as I know it in my heart. Chu Qingyan smiled and patted him hard on the shoulder. She said like a good brother, I like to talk to smart people. Higashio Motetsu pursed his lips. How have you been recently? Chu Qingyan took a deep breath and turned to ask him. SOSO. How about you? He asked. Chu Qingyan smiled. I'm all right. There's nothing to worry about at the moment. Is that so? Why did I hear that someone ran away from home last time and caused a lot of trouble? He looked at her with a smile, hinting at something. She couldn't help but touch her nose, feeling a little guilty. How did you know about this? How embarrassing. So it's true. You little girl, you've grown up. TSK, you're just here to make fun of me. Go away. Chu Qingyan glared at him and walked away. Higashio Motetsu looked at her back, and his eyes darkened. When he received the news, he was in Capital City and had also received Empress Liang's assassination order. He sent people to stop her, but they were too late. In the end, the person who saved her was still Xiao Su. A gust of cold wind blew past, dispersing the darkness in his eyes. The sparkling light in his eyes dissipated, and they regained their former clarity. He walked up and heard her voice. Daunting, let me tell you something, she said with her back facing him. What? He asked as he walked. Half a month later, it will be my birthday. She put her hands behind her back and intertwined her fingers one by one. Can I guess that you're reminding me to prepare a birthday gift for you? Higashio Motetsu looked up and smiled brightly in the sunlight. As he spoke, he began to think about it. This time, he had obtained something good in the capital. The little girl should like it if she saw it. I'm not that thick-skinned. Actually, after my birthday, I want to go back to Lian City. She continued. Then go back. He frowned slightly, feeling that there was something wrong with her tone. In her joy, there was a trace of shyness. I want to go back to Lian City to be a bride. Katja. His footsteps suddenly stopped, and the branch he was playing with snapped in the middle because he used too much force. He suddenly forgot to move forward as he listened to the person who was 3 steps away from him ramble on and on. I'm a marriageable age. Big Ice Cube said that we can get married. Because we've been in Lian City for 5 years. It's like a second home outside of the King of England's residence. So Mother said that I can get married from there. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, 5 years have passed. Chapter 852. Chu Qingyan, who was immersed in her own happiness, didn't notice that something was amiss behind her. She waited for a while, but didn't hear his reply. Just as she was about to turn around, she heard a faint, emotionless voice. So, you're planning to invite me so that I can prepare the money in advance? Chu Qingyan stretched lazily against the sun and looked back with a smile. I'm returning the favor. When you get married in the future, you can send me an invitation. I'll definitely attend to all the etiquette. The sunlight danced between her eyebrows, and a transparent, warm halo enveloped her body. He was so close yet so far, and his eyesight was excellent, so he could clearly see the fluffy hair on her face. She was so adorable. He shook his mind and lowered his eyes slightly. Aren't you only 15 years old? You don't want to enjoy the good times, and you're willing to be a resentful woman in the boudoir? Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. You're such an old-fashioned person. He won't interfere with my affairs. As long as I like it, he will let me do it. The continuation of the product is the best proof. Hearing her speak up for Xiao Su, his mood to tease her faded a lot. Chu Qingyan then continued, speaking of which, you're also in your 20s. Don't you have a girl you like? She paused and looked at him with disdain. That's not right. With your looks, it's hard to find a girl who's more outstanding than you. A normal girl would be ashamed to death standing next to you. A beauty's heart is not as good as her appearance, he said softly. Chu Qingyan pondered over his words. Did he mean that a person didn't need to be too beautiful? It was enough to have a kind heart. Dongting, when did you become enlightened? Do you need me to help you keep an eye out for the resources around you and introduce a few to you? Chu Qingyan grinned at him, looking like a child who could be taught. It wasn't because the sunlight was too bright, but because her smile was too dazzling. He couldn't help but avert his eyes. The corner of his mouth curled up, and he said with a strange smile, I'm not as desperate to get married as you are. A man's ambition is to travel the world. The only way to start a family is to start a career first. Chu Qingyan lowered her eyebrows and thought for a moment. Then she smiled and said, That's true. As the young master of the Moon Palace, you'll inherit your father's position sooner or later. Normal girls won't catch your eye, so I won't worry for you. Hearing her words, the smile in Dongting Wangyu's eyes grew fainter. He walked a few steps, leaned against the thick trunk of the peach tree, and asked casually, You've already decided on Xiao Su and won't change your mind? He didn't know why, but his heart felt inexplicably uncomfortable. It was even worse when she said that she wanted to get married. Chu Qingyan took a few steps to the side and hid under the shade of a tree. She had been under the sun for a long time, and it was still a little hot. She looked at him suspiciously and said, Why are you so long-winded? Are you possessed by your mother? You're so mysterious. Of course I've thought it through. Higashio Motetsu rolled his eyes at her. I'm still your family. Don't bite me like a dog. You don't know how to appreciate people's kindness. Chu Qingyan quickly apologized with a smile. All right. I've wronged you. Who told you to be so strange just now? It was like you didn't agree. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener did. Higashio Motetsu was stunned. Did he? While he was still in a daze, Chu Qingyan's clear voice entered his ears. We met when we were 10 and accompanied each other for 5 years. Since we're destined to spend the rest of our lives together, what difference does it make if it's a step earlier or later? He opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but Jin Xian and Xining had already walked over. Master, Hualing came over just now. His Highness is looking for you. Jin Xian nodded to Higashio Motetsu before turning to speak to his master. As soon as his voice fell, before Chu Qingyan could answer, someone else spoke first. What? He doesn't even give you this bit of freedom. He's just meeting up with a friend. Chu Qingyan found it funny. Maybe it's something urgent. Don't think too much. Yo, you're already speaking up for him before you're even married. If you're married, wouldn't it be hard for me to even see you? Little girl, I've been your friend for many years. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Can't you even talk to me? Higashio Motetsu gave a cold snort. He was clearly in the wrong. Chu Qingyan tilted her head, looking a little embarrassed. How about I hold a welcoming dinner for you tomorrow? Seeing her frown slightly, he sighed in his heart and waved his hand at her. Go. Even if I force you to stay, your heart is elsewhere. It's not fun at all. Chu Qingyan smiled at him apologetically. Don't say that. If you have time, go to the store and play with Xioli and Yenluo. They must miss you very much. Go. Don't be an eyesore in front of me. This young master isn't in a good mood right now. Higashio Motetsu snorted. Although he said that, she didn't see any displeasure on his face. She thought that he had a sharp tongue, but a soft heart. She waved at him and walked back. Jin Xian and Shining nodded at Higashio Motetsu before catching up with the people in front of them. The smile on Higashio Motetsu's face disappeared little by little. He watched the crimson figure slowly walk away. Her long hair, which was tied up high, fluttered in the wind behind her. As she walked away, he had an illusion that she would walk out of his life like this. With one hand behind his back, he held the broken branch tightly in his palm. It seemed that he'd been doing this subconsciously since just now. At this moment, he held it in front of him and looked at the broken branch with an indescribable expression. His heart was very uncomfortable, and he was in a very bad mood. Zimo, come out. After a moment, a blue and white figure stood in front of him. Young master, what are your orders? Xuanqi Zimo looked up, but when he saw his master's expression, he was suddenly stunned. He had been by his master's side for so long, but this was the first time he had seen his master so lost and lonely. Master, why did young Master Dongting suddenly appear? Xining asked curiously as she walked. Maybe he went to the shop and found out where we were going. Chu Qingyan felt very happy to be able to see her good friend at this time. However, during their conversation, Chu Qingyan had neglected one thing. From the beginning to the end, Higashio Motetsu had not explained to her why he had left Jiangnan to deal with. Every time they talked about it, he would change the topic with all kinds of different things. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows, but was better not to mention it to the ice block. Otherwise, his vinegar jar would be sour again. Therefore, she thought about it and told the two of them not to reveal their encounter in the peach forest. Jin Xian and Xining looked at each other. Finally, Jin Xian said to the person who was about to board the carriage, Master, I think this matter can't be hidden. What? His Highness might have known that young Master Dongting had returned, so he sent someone to look for you. Ah, she lost her footing and almost fell off the carriage. If he knew this, then the ice block was too resourceful. Chapter 853. Higashio Motetsu fiddled with the broken branch in his hand as he asked, Do you know that Qingyan is about to get married? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? His expression was as indifferent as ever. Xuanqi Zimo observed his young master's expression for a moment, but didn't see anything amiss. He pondered for a moment, then finally decided to speak his mind. This subordinate thought that you would find out when you returned, so I didn't say much. At that time, they'd been traveling day and night. He'd felt that his young master was tired enough, so he hadn't reported any of the things that had happened in Jiangnan. Higashio Motetsu should have been angry, but when he heard his subordinate's words, he didn't know where to vent his anger. He clearly knew that when he heard Qingyan say that she was about to marry Xiao Su, his heart felt as if it had been pierced by something. Then, it started to hurt intensely, as if he couldn't believe that it was real. You and Xiao Su met when you were 10 years old. Weren't we the same? We've been together for 5 years. Although I wasn't by your side, didn't I miss you? Was it destined? Was there really such a thing as destiny in life? Not necessarily. Did it make a difference whether it was earlier or later? Not necessarily, either. Wait a minute. Why'd he suddenly have these thoughts? Higashio Motetsu's eyes were filled with confusion. Young master, are you all right? Shuanchi Zimo didn't hear anything for a long time. Under the pressure of his young master's powerful aura, he forced himself to raise his head. When he saw the panic on his young master's face, he couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Higashio Motetsu's thoughts were thrown into disarray by his subordinate's sudden outburst. His expression quickly returned to its usual unreadable state. I'm fine. Young master, are you unhappy because Miss Chu is about to get married? Shuanchi Zimo asked cautiously. He was prepared to be kicked out of the room. He was the only person who couldn't resist touching the tiger's whiskers, even though he knew that he would be implicated. Unhappy? Higashio Motetsu frowned. After waiting for half a day, Shuanchi Zimo heaved a sigh of relief when he didn't hear anything. But when he raised his head, he heard his young master say, "Who says this young master is unhappy? Seeing her get married happily makes this young master happy for her. Is that so? But young master, your tone makes me panic. Do women nowadays all want to get married so badly?" Then he heard his master's voice. He thought, after some thought, he mustered up his courage. "2. Marrying. When? To be. Really? Where? To. 2. Zim. S his. T. Then, master. Do you want to prepare a wedding gift for Miss Chu? Shuanchi Zimo asked. A birthday gift is enough. As for a wedding gift, there's no need for that. Higashio Motetsu seemed to have thought of something. His eyes lit up. Huh? Shuanchi Zimo didn't understand. Shishuan is about to be shaken. Do you think Xiao Su will have the energy to get married? Higashio Motetsu clapped his hands. His fingertips glowed. Shuanchi Zimo understood. You're right, young master. Higashio Motetsu smiled coldly. He straightened up. Just as he was about to go back to sleep, he heard his subordinate's hesitant question. Master, there's something this subordinate doesn't know if it's appropriate to ask. If it's not appropriate, then don't ask. Higashio Motetsu smiled wickedly, but his words were merciless. Young master is so direct. Then this subordinate feels that I should still ask. He recalled the palace master's instructions before he left and stiffened his neck. Young master, you treat Miss Chu very differently. If in the future we oppose her, what will you do? Higashio Motetsu glared coldly at the man in front of him. What did he become so bold? The palace lord said that the young master didn't need to be influenced by other emotions. He didn't need to be cold-blooded or dissolute. He needed to walk through thousands of flowers without a single leaf touching him. Only then would he be able to complete the Moon Palace's hegemony. That was why he needed to remind the young master of his status at all times. There was no turning back. Although he felt his legs go weak under his master's glare, he still dutifully continued to speak. You only treat Miss Chu as a friend. In addition, the palace lord also mentioned the Moon Palace's plans for the future while we were in the capital. So, this subordinate boldly believes that if there comes a day when we become enemies, you won't care about Miss Chu anymore. Am I right? Although these words made him angry, they were all true. In the past few months in the capital, he had been thinking about one question. Zimo's question. In the end, when he nodded and agreed to his father's instructions, he had already decided his position. Just like what he said to the little girl, a man should aspire to travel far. And power was rotten but fragrant. He didn't chase after it, but his status didn't allow him to not fight for it. No, why was he thinking so much? He was supposed to be someone who was free from death, power, and the 7 emotions. He was supposed to be a bystander in this world. When everyone was sinking, he was supposed to be clear-headed. When everyone was clear-headed, he was more clear-headed than them. Separation and life and death, joy and joy, joy and anger, all had nothing to do with him. Everyone was a passerby in his life. If they got along, they would come. If they didn't, they would leave. No one would accompany anyone to the end of their lives. His father was, his mother was, and so was the little girl. So, what was there to care about? He smiled gently and patted the leaves that fell from the tree. With his hands behind his head, he strolled leisurely along the path he came from. Let's go. It's time to go back and get some sleep. Xuanqi Zimo had been anxiously waiting for his young master to scold him, but he didn't expect to hear such a light sentence. He stared blankly at his young master's back. Suddenly, he felt that the high-spirited, arrogant, and fearless young master had returned. He heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that his words had worked. He immediately chased after him, but when he lifted his foot, a question flashed through his mind. Since his master had accepted the palace lord's request, why did he still make a trip thousands of miles away? He really didn't understand his young master. He didn't think about it for the time being. Instead, he quickly followed. Chu Qingyan didn't know about the conversation between Higashio Motetsu and Xuanqi Zimo in the forest. By the time she returned to the residence, it was already an hour later. Kai, why are you back so early? Father Chu, who was standing by the courtyard door and playing with glutinous rice ball, looked up and asked in confusion. When he saw the Tongholu in her hand, he immediately stood up from the ground. Father knew that Kai was the best. Chu Qingyan handed the Tongholu to her father, then asked, "Did anything happen in the courtyard today?" "No." Father Chu licked the syrup. Then, when his daughter was about to leave, he added, "She didn't leave the study the whole day." Chu Qingyan staggered. I know." Father Chu didn't realize what he had said. He lowered his head and asked glutinous rice ball, "Do you want some Tongholu?" Beg me. Glutinous rice ball held its head high and puffed its chest out. It ignored him and turned to leave. It wanted to find its mother and older brother. When Father Chu saw this, he immediately chased after it. Okay, I'll give it to you. Chu Qingyan. Chapter 854. Standing in front of the study, Chu Qingyan gently knocked on the door. When she heard an answer from inside, she reached out to push it open. When she walked in and closed the door, she heard the sound of pages being flipped. She turned around and saw the tall and handsome figure behind the table. She was not in a rush to go forward, but rather leaned against the pillar and seriously looked over the person in front of her. In the study and bedroom, he basically did not wear a mask because everyone in the palace knew that the study and bedroom were forbidden areas. Other than Huo Ling and the others, no one dared to come in, so it was relatively hidden. At this moment, the silver mask was placed on the table, and his noble and otherworldly face was completely exposed to her. The sunlight outside shined in through the half-open window and fell on the table, half warm and half cold. The shadow of the bamboo swayed in the light, and the shadows were reflected on his sleeves. The soft and bright light flowed between his eyebrows, and his usually cold appearance was tainted with some warmth. If Dong Ting was a god that was both good and evil, then the big ice cube was a god that could not be violated. She didn't want to compare the two of them. She just felt that being surrounded by such outstanding men made her, as a woman, blush with shame. Have you seen enough? His voice was still light. Even if you give me a lifetime, it still won't be enough. Being caught in the act, she was not embarrassed as she openly teased him. You're welcome to come and see for a lifetime. Xiao Su returned her words to her. Chu Qingyan took advantage of him and said, all right. She walked over and went around the table. She walked to his side and lowered her head to read the book in his hand. Folk gossip. When did you become interested in this kind of book? He clearly said that it was a light book before and told her to read less. Xiao Su closed the book and moved to the side. He took a cup of tea from his side and opened it. There was no steam coming from it. When he was about to call someone to change the tea, the person beside him stopped him. She giggled as she poked her head over. It's good that it's not hot. I just came back and my mouth is dry. Quickly give me a drink. Chu Qingyan reached out her hand as she spoke. He lowered his head and touched the cup with his finger. Although it wasn't hot, it was still warm. He brought the tea to her mouth. Chu Qingyan did not suspect anything as she drank the tea in one gulp. After drinking it, she pursed her lips subconsciously. The tea was not hot, and it was sweet and refreshing. In an instant, her anxiety was soothed. After she thought about it, she was about to continue asking the question when she was suddenly pulled into the embrace of the person in front of her. She hadn't even sat down properly when she felt the scent of his ink right in front of her, and it really was right in front of her. Xiao Su's gaze fell on her lips that were moist with tea. His heart moved, and he lowered his head to cover her lips. She was sitting in his arms, which made it easy for him to do bad things, especially his restless hands. Her body was completely supported by him, so she could only reach out and wrap her arms around his neck to prevent herself from falling. She raised her head and endured the storm that he gave her, allowing him to move his hands up and down. Xiao Su's fingers slid up her inky black hair. Finally, his 5 fingers entered her hair and pulled her closer. This action caused her to be slightly moved. She felt like she was being cherished. After the kiss, the two of them were breathing unsteadily. She closed her eyes and was too embarrassed to look at him. Although she was a bit confused at the beginning and was forced to endure his attacks, he was already very familiar with her, and she quickly fell in love with him. She couldn't help but gradually respond to him as she fell in love with him. In the end, she was drowned by his storm and could only float with him in the waves of the sea. Xiao Su lowered his head and saw that the person in his arms had buried her head tightly in his chest. That scorching hot breath poured onto his clothes. He was only wearing a thin shirt, so the hot breath penetrated and came close to his skin. His throat moved, and his whole body heated up again. He forced himself to suppress this heat and took the initiative to talk about the previous topic to distract her. In this book, there's information about the customs of marriage among the people. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan couldn't care less about her embarrassment and immediately raised her head. Are you cramming on this knowledge? And it can be considered a last-minute cramming. His fingers caressed her hair. The little fellow's hair was very soft and comfortable to touch. Don't you have the housekeeper and mother? Moreover, you're so busy, you should leave these things to them. She was very good at being a hands-off shopkeeper, so when she heard him say this, she was puzzled at first and couldn't help but ask, what can be more important than our marriage? His fingers curled around the ends of her hair. His body leaned back and lazily leaned on the table. The corner of his mouth slightly hooked up as he continued, moreover, I prefer to do things myself when it comes to your matters. These words were even sweeter than those flashy sweet nothings that had no substance. Chu Qingyan's charming face immediately turned red, but the person in front of her who had just finished whispering sweet nothings didn't seem to be aware of it. Seeing her flushed face, he even pretended to touch her face with the back of his hand. Why is it so hot? She averted her eyes, wanting to find an excuse to dodge it. But when she raised her head, she didn't miss the teasing look in his eyes. She suddenly realized that this guy was teasing her. She couldn't help but get angry. Crossing her arms, she looked at him with a cold smile. Do things yourself? But the food I eat is made by the kitchen, and the clothes I wear are washed by the servants. If you really want to do things yourself, then I'll leave these things to you. She saw his lips curl into a smile that was as gorgeous as a summer flower. Before she could regain her senses from his beautiful smile, he had already approached her and whispered in her ear, I don't think I should be useful in this kind of place. If you want me to feed you, I'm more than happy to do so. His strong existence couldn't be ignored. Coupled with this whisper, it made her instantly stunned on the spot. Especially when he enunciated the word feed, it made people's imagination run wild. Also, if you're willing to borrow my hands for things like changing and taking off clothes, I'm very willing to serve you. As Xiao Su said this, his eyes faintly fell on her collar and belt. She only wanted to win back around, but she didn't expect to be blocked by him, and the most hateful thing was that she was taken advantage of by him. Ginger is indeed spicier with age. Chu Qingyan felt that her face could steam an egg. She quickly reached out her hand to block his invasive eyes and angrily said, Why aren't you reading your book? You'll affect me if you're here. A certain person boasted shamelessly. What? You can read your book? I won't be in your way. She was confused by him. Your existence is the biggest disturbance to me. As he said this, his hand covered her hand that was placed on his eyes. When he pulled it down, she saw the black whirlpool in his eyes. Suddenly, her face was covered by his warm fingertips, and she heard his low sigh by her ear. Stop squirming around. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to endure it. Chapter 855. Boom. It was as if thunder had exploded in her head. She was so frightened that she sat upright and didn't even dare to move. Feeling the person in his arms stiffen, Xiao couldn't help but laugh. I'm not a tiger that can eat you. Chu Qingyin criticized him in her heart. You're much more powerful than a tiger. She swallowed her saliva and prepared to stand up. Since I'll disturb you, I'll leave first. Just as she stood up, she was pulled into his arms again. Her shoulder bumped into his hard chest, and she couldn't help but cry out in surprise. To be honest, she felt that he must have deliberately waited for her to stand up before making his move. Compared to reading, I prefer to see you at a loss. Xiao put his hand on her shoulder, his fingertips moving slightly as he helped her massage her acupuncture points. A comfortable warmth flowed from her shoulder blade to her entire body. She couldn't bear to leave, so she turned her back to him and enjoyed his massage. Her ears automatically blocked out what he had just said. After a while, her whole body felt warm. She couldn't help but sigh. Your skills are really good. Xiao raised his eyebrows. I have many good parts. Do you want to try? Chu Qingyin's face darkened. What was wrong with the big ice cube today? She felt that something was wrong. Why are you so free today? She wanted to say that he had the leisure to flirt with his fiancée. For next month's big event, I've pushed back all the things that should be pushed back, he replied casually. All right, then you'd better read to increase your knowledge and prepare for next month. I won't disturb you anymore. She prepared to stand up again. He propped up his face with one hand and looked at her with a smile. I feel that rather than letting you go out and harm others, it's safer to keep you under my nose. This smile didn't reach his eyes. Chu Qingyin had the misconception that he was settling scores with her after the autumn. When did I harm others? She raised her head and asked, puzzled. Tao Lin, an old friend, we meet again after a long separation. Xiao still had a smile on his face as he lightly threw out a few words. She felt a little dizzy after hearing those words, and it took her a while to react. She glared at her angrily. You followed me? To be exact, it should be following Higashio Motetsu. As soon as he entered Jiangnan, Xiao like cavalry received the news and followed the vine to find the melon, and saw you. Xiao was not surprised at all. Once Higashio Motetsu returned to Jiangnan, he would look for the little fellow. Hearing his words, Chu Qingyin felt better, but she didn't quite understand. Why do you want to spy on Daunting? Once bitten, twice shy. Although you're forgetful, I haven't forgotten that he used you. It's better to take precautions before it happens. But he has already corrected it, hasn't he? He helped me a lot when I was in Jiangnan. Chu Qingyin knew that he was right to be worried, but she still wanted to defend Dongting. She always believed in her friends. It's fine if he doesn't have that intention, but if he wants to use you again, then I won't be polite. Xiao stroked her long hair, thoughts spinning in his eyes. With Higashio Motetsu's intelligence, it was impossible for him not to notice that he was spying on him. That was why he went straight to find the little fellow as soon as he returned. He just wanted to show off to him. He coldly curled his lips. The little fellow was sincere and kind, and would not guard against her family and friends. Then he would be her shield, blocking all the unfavorable factors outside, and not touching her at all. Although Chu Qingyin didn't quite agree with the big ice cube's friendship with her, she knew that once he decided on something, there was no turning back. She couldn't help but look at him helplessly. Dongting and I are really just friends. Don't think too much. I didn't realize before that you were such a big vinegar jar. The origin of this matter must have been caused by someone's jealousy. Now, that he was always watching the opposite sex around her, did that mean that even the animals around her couldn't be male in the future? She felt that it was very possible. Xiao reached out and pinched her nose. Even if you find out now, you can't go back on your words. She rolled her eyes at him and turned her head away, not wanting to look at him. But soon, she was attracted by the slender and beautiful fingers on his lap. She lowered her head and played with them. Xiao lowered his head and looked at her quiet appearance. The hair on her temples fell with her movements, covering the side of her face. He reached out and tucked her hair behind her head, his eyes gentle. The little fellow might not know that her unintentional actions would make people unable to look away. He had seen Higashio Motetsu's gaze when he looked at her. There was an inexplicable emotion in his eyes, but perhaps he just didn't know it. Perhaps this was the so-called the onlooker cannot see clearly. He wouldn't interfere with the little fellow's freedom to make friends, but he had his own ways to protect his territory from being violated. Those who coveted, as long as the little fellow's gaze was on him, they wouldn't have a chance to take advantage of it, and he would never give them a chance. Chu Qingyan didn't know that the person behind her was exuding a strong sense of possessiveness. Sichuan Jiangnan, the scenery was picturesque. At its border, the hot wind blew, the war drums beat, the smoke of gunpowder filled the air, and the flames of war were rolling. If Jiangnan was a paradise for the people, then here could be said to be hell on earth. One by one, the soldiers fell down, dying in the most tragic way. "General, the enemy is about to attack the city. What should we do?" Deputy General Yin Shi climbed up the tall building and said to the man in armor, who was covered in black ash and whose appearance could no longer be distinguished. If you looked carefully, you would find that the man who was called General was only 17 or 18 years old. At this time, he frowned and stared at the clamorous enemy below, as well as his own soldiers who were retreating. Then, he turned to the deputy general beside him with red eyes. "I clearly plan to lure them to Lianyan Cliff, 10 miles away. Why are they here?" This general is also not clear. Our men have reported that the Southern Song Army has indeed sent soldiers, but the number of soldiers does not exceed 100. "General, I'm afraid that they have seen through our plan and are planning to beat us at our own game. They sent a portion of their forces to lure us into their trap, before gathering their forces to attack Qingqiao City. General, we have already sent out a large number of troops. The remaining people are not enough to resist the menacing enemy. I'm afraid that we won't be able to hold on for another 2 hours." Yin Shi's voice trembled. It was as if he could see the Southern Song Army breaking into the city in 2 hours. At that time, blood would flow like a river. "General, the city is about to be broken. How could this be? I clearly planned it out. How could they see through our plan?" The young general's eyes were unfocused as he murmured in disbelief. But soon he recovered. His eyes were firm and resolute. Then he put his hand on his waist and prepared to draw his sword. "If the city lives, the people live. If the city dies, the people die. General, let's abandon the city." Yin Shi couldn't bear it, but he had to suggest. "No, I won't allow it." As soon as he finished speaking, Yin Shi knelt down. "Your Highness the Fourth Prince, I beg you to abandon the city." The young general's hand trembled as his eyes turned red. "Consort, you sent a message yesterday. She asked me to remember to ask your Highness to protect yourself. So your Highness, where there's life, there's hope. Let's abandon the city." He was a general, but at the same time, he was a prince. His life was not up to him to decide. "Give the order to abandon the city." He closed his eyes, too ashamed to look back at the city behind him. Chapter 856. When Xiao Ran led his men out of Qingqiao City, arrogant laughter rose and fell in the distance, constantly entering everyone's ears. Xiao Ran turned around and saw the southern blue flag on the city wall. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. There were only a few soldiers left beside him. They were all seriously injured. As he rode on his horse, he could hear the painful groans of his subordinates. His heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. If it was his eldest brother, he definitely wouldn't have abandoned the city. No, if the one leading the army was his eldest brother, he definitely wouldn't have let the Southern Blue Army get any benefits. He definitely wouldn't have let the Southern Blue Army enter the city. "Fourth Prince, this isn't your fault." The Southern Blue Army came with a ferocious momentum. Not only do they have powerful weapons, they also live in a bitterly cold environment and eat raw beef and mutton. They are tall and mighty. We aren't their opponents. Yin Shi saw that his general didn't say a word, so he couldn't help but explain. Xiao Ran smiled bitterly. "Deputy General Yin, you don't need to comfort me. In the end, it's my lack of skill that made me unable to lead you to kill the enemy." As he spoke, he looked up at the sky, filled with smoke. His expression darkened slightly. I begged Imperial Father again to get the last chance to lead the army, but I didn't expect a crushing defeat. Blood flowed like a river. The people had no way to make a living. General, you must take care of yourself. Your safety concerns the entire Sichuan. Yanshi saw that he was depressed and immediately advised. Xiao Ran turned to look at Yanshi. His armor was broken and his face was char-black. He couldn't recognize his original appearance. He laughed at himself. Deputy General Yin, you're my grandfather's man, right? Yanshi was stunned, then lowered his head and admitted, this subordinate followed the right minister for many years. 3 years ago, I was sent to Anlin City to guard it. This time, I was ordered to follow His Highness. Lu Wenfeng, Zhu Ocheng, and Zhou Fei, you too? Yes. Xiao Ran understood. This time, he led the troops to battle. On the surface, it looked like he was fighting alone. In fact, his grandfather and mother had already placed people by his side. He originally thought that he could spread his wings and fly high, but he didn't expect that in the end, he still couldn't escape everyone's protection. Yanshi sensed his disappointment and comforted him. Your Highness, you don't have to worry too much. Right Minister and Consort, you are also concerned about you. Moreover, with your age, it's already commendable that you can persist for so long. Rare and precious? The truly commendable one is the eldest brother. When he led the army to battle, he was only 13 or 14 years old, but he became famous in one battle. Xiao Ran sighed in his heart. Knowing that Yanshi was comforting him, Xiao Ran did not say anything more. Just as everyone was taking a short break, they suddenly heard the sound of uniformed military boots stomping on the ground. What's that sound? Have the reinforcements arrived? No, it's not that fast. Everyone began to panic. Yanshi flew over from afar and said to Xiao Ran in a panic, General, the Southern Song Army is chasing after us. We're about to be surrounded. Xiao Ran immediately got up from the stone. Although his expression was anxious, his tone was still calm. Is there any way to leave nearby? This place is close to the county stone peak. There's a Changza Valley there, which is full of swamps. If our people can enter the valley and use the terrain there, we can temporarily avoid the Southern Song Army. Yanshi replied, Good, it's decided. Everyone, follow this general. Xiao Ran ordered and led his people towards the county stone peak. Thousands of miles away from Qingqiao City, in the Sichuan Imperial Palace, the sun shone on the earth, but couldn't light up the haze that hovered around the imperial study. Your Majesty, there's an urgent report from the front lines. Qingqiao City has fallen. The Assistant Minister of the Ministry of War knelt in front of the table and reported in pain. Sichuan Emperor was furious. He waved his hand and said, Get up. The Assistant Minister of the Ministry of War immediately stood up and retreated to the back of the ministers. In the study, the left row was led by the left Prime Minister Liang Qingyu, while the right row was led by the right Prime Minister Fu Jinrong. Everyone had different expressions when they heard the news. Fu Jinrong's faction frowned and looked very worried. The one leading the army was the fourth prince, Xiao Ran. They had strongly recommended him to go to the front lines. Now that the cities had fallen one after another, it was like slapping themselves in the face. Liang Qingyu's faction was watching from the sidelines. Their eyes were full of ridicule for the fourth prince's faction. When they had strongly opposed the fourth prince's deployment, they could see that he was just a brat who was still wet behind the ears. It was impossible for him to take up the responsibility. Now, it was just as they had expected. What's the situation of our 3 armies now? Sichuan Emperor asked with a dark face. A minister stepped forward and replied, Out of the 300,000 soldiers, 80,000 died on the battlefield. Around 150,000 were injured. It's a disastrous loss. These numbers were frightening. Sichuan Emperor gave his eldest son, Liang Song, a look. Liang Song understood. He stepped forward and cupped his hands to the Sichuan Emperor. Your Majesty, in just a few months, we have already lost Qingqiao City, Jiangning County, Jiasong County, and nearly 10 other cities. Moreover, our army has suffered such heavy losses. If this continues, I'm afraid that the army's morale will be unstable. It's not good for the war. A minister beside Fu Jianrong immediately stepped forward. Lord Liang, do you want His Majesty to change the commander-in-chief? Changing the commander-in-chief on the spot will really cause the army's morale to be unstable. Lord Liang didn't say that he wanted to change the commander-in-chief. It was you who suggested it. A minister on the left sneered and retorted. Immediately after, another minister on the left stepped forward. Lord Liang and Lord Li are both right. If we lose the cities, the army's morale will be unstable. This is very disadvantageous for our dynasty. However, Lord Lu said that changing the commander-in-chief will affect the army's morale. In fact, if a new commander-in-chief is someone the army is willing to follow, then the army's morale will not only not be broken, it will be even more stable. Once these words were spoken, they immediately received the support of the left minister's faction. The right minister's faction was not to be outdone. They all stepped forward and retorted righteously. Sichuan Emperor silently glanced at the arguing ministers below. Everyone felt the dragon's might from above and immediately quieted down. A moment later, the Xixian Emperor slowly opened his mouth. What my beloved subject said is not wrong, but in the face of a great enemy, a quarrel of words is of no use. We hope to hear good advice, not a quarrel of words like you causing trouble. The ministers couldn't help but lower their heads, not daring to meet the eyes of the person above. Sichuan Emperor continued, My beloved ministers, do you have any good suggestions for the war? Your Majesty, this old minister believes that although the fourth prince is talented and intelligent, the Southern Blue Army is full of cunning and valiant. The fourth prince's talent is still shallow, and I'm afraid that he won't be a match for them. Therefore, this old minister suggests that we change the commander-in-chief, who has experienced hundreds of battles. An old but highly respected official of 3 dynasties, Duke Chonghe, took the lead and bowed his head to Sichuan Emperor. Once these words were spoken, most of the people present agreed. The right minister's faction wanted to refute, but the facts were in front of them. They could only remain silent. Duke Chonghe, what good candidate do you recommend? Sichuan Emperor respected this duke. His tone was not as cold as before. This person is brave and valiant, wise and resourceful. He led an army at a young age, has a strong mind, and is invincible. I believe that your Majesty already has a candidate in mind. Duke Chonghe stroked his beard and spoke unhurriedly. When Sichuan Emperor heard this, he glanced gloomily at Duke Chonghe. However, he quickly realized that the ministers in front of him all revealed a look of understanding. He was slightly stunned. Could it be that this son of his had already become the commander-in-chief that everyone expected? Chapter 857. Your Majesty, Prince Chonghe is right. I believe that only His Royal Highness can take on this responsibility. Your Majesty, His Royal Highness fought with the Southern Song Army at the border many years ago and forced them to retreat. Although the scale was small, at least His Royal Highness fought with the Southern Song Army and had some understanding of them. As the saying goes, know thyself and know thy enemy, and you will not be defeated in 100 battles. Your Majesty, I also agree that His Royal Highness should be allowed to regain control of the army and force the arrogant Southern Song Army to retreat and recover the lost land. After Commander Prince Chonghe finished speaking, many of the officials in the imperial study spoke up and pointed at the same person. The King of England, Xiao. At this time, the right Prime Minister's faction was silent, and the left Prime Minister's faction was also silent. Sichuan Emperor looked at the ministers kneeling on the ground. They were all ministers who were usually neutral and did not side with any party. Sichuan Emperor's squinted eyes suddenly loosened and he rubbed his eyebrows. If it was the left Prime Minister's faction who spoke up, then he could still tell himself that it was the left Prime Minister's faction who wanted Xiao to return in order to strengthen his position. However, unexpectedly, the people who recommended him were all neutral ministers. He did not expect that Xiao's position in the court would still be so stable after leaving the capital for 5 years. In other words, he had always neglected his position in the hearts of the officials. At the same time, he also neglected one thing. He was the Sichuan prince and also an outstanding general. The ministers knelt on the ground, and the number continued to increase. The West Xian emperor sighed inwardly. In the end, he raised his hand with a tired expression. "We understand what you are all thinking." Then he turned to look at the silent Right Prime Minister, Fu Jinrong. Regarding the minister's suggestions, does the Right Prime Minister have any opinions? Fu Jinrong pursed his lips, bowed his head, and replied, "This subject obeys your Majesty's orders." The current situation was because Xiao Ran did not live up to expectations. If he still insisted on letting him lead the army, then he would offend these mainstay ministers. He would also be cursed as someone who only cared about his own selfish desires and did not care about the safety of the country. Sichuan Emperor understood the Right Prime Minister's attitude. He continued to ask, "Left Prime Minister, what do you think?" A glint flashed across Liang Qingyu's eyes. He bowed his head and replied, "Your subject obeys your Majesty's orders." In any case, the situation was already set. The ministers who proposed the proposal were enough to give His Majesty a headache. He did not want to get involved. He would just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. His Majesty was already unhappy, so he did not want to take the lead. Sichuan Emperor snorted coldly in his heart. This sly old fox, he still pretended to be obedient after taking advantage of the situation. Who knew how much he was laughing in his heart? Since the two prime ministers have no objections, I will adopt the minister's suggestions. I will recall the King of England and have him depart for the battlefield today to meet with the three armies. When the time comes, he will hand over to the fourth prince and take over the position of commander-in-chief of the three armies. He will whip the enemy and reclaim the lost territory. Sichuan Emperor said powerfully, "Your Majesty is wise." The ministers bowed their heads and knelt on the ground. "You may leave." Sichuan Emperor waved his hand. The ministers took their leave in an orderly manner. The ministers left the imperial study in twos and threes. When they reached the stone stairs, Liang Qingyu followed Commandery Prince Chonghe in front of him. "Commandery Prince, thank you for speaking up for justice in front of His Majesty," Liang Qingyu said sincerely. Commandery Prince Chonghe glanced at him. "Left Prime Minister, you must have misunderstood. I did not do it for you." Liang Qingyu frowned in confusion. "What do you mean, Commandery Prince?" Commandery Prince Chonghe's expression was unreadable. He laughed heartily and said, "I am old and will not be able to participate in court politics for many years. I only hope that Sichuan can prosper and that the people live in peace while I am alive. This advice is only for the sake of the overall situation. Xiao can take on great responsibilities. That is all." Liang Qingyu felt that he understood but also did not understand. Commandery Prince Chonghe smiled. "Have a safe journey, Prime Minister Zhua. This Commandery Prince will take his leave first." "Take care, Commandery Prince." Liang Qingyu hurriedly cupped his hands. When Commandery Prince Chonghe was far away, Liang Song walked up from behind. "Father, what did the Commandery Prince say? This person is very cunning." I was also confused by what he said. To be able to establish himself in the imperial court for 3 dynasties and gain the respect of His Majesty, he must be a capable person. Liang Qingyu frowned as he watched Commandery Prince Chonghe leave. When Liang Song heard this, he said, "He is indeed powerful." However, it was because he dared to stand up and say those words that His Majesty relented and recalled the King of England. Liang Qingyu frowned. Actually, with Commandery Prince Chonghe's suggestion, His Majesty will be unable to withstand the pressure and issue an imperial edict sooner or later. Liang Song said as he walked with his father, "Although that is the case, I am afraid that if it drags on for too long, the military strength will be severely reduced. When that time comes, even if the King of England returns, he will not be able to reverse the situation." Liang Qingyu shook his head. "Father, you are right." Liang Song nodded. Liang Qingyu recalled His Majesty's gloomy expression in the imperial study and could not help but say, "For now, you must restrain your officials and make sure they do not do anything out of line." Tell them to be careful with their words and actions and wait for the King of England to return victorious. After today's incident, I am afraid that His Majesty will be more strict with our people." Liang Song's expression could not help but become serious. "Understood." After that, Liang Song asked hesitantly, "But father, do you think that the King of England will accept the imperial edict and go to war?" "I am afraid that is not up to him." Liang Qingyu looked at the rolling dark clouds in the sky and said in a low voice. After the officials left the imperial study, the entire room suddenly became much emptier. However, Sichuan Emperor felt that his chest was very heavy. Unit Xiao saw this and immediately opened the window to let in some fresh air. Perhaps it was the fresh breeze that blew in, dispersing the haze in Sichuan Emperor's heart. His tightly knitted brows relaxed a lot. He recalled the scene of the officials begging for orders, and his expression became gloomy again. He had calculated everything and sent Xiao Su away from the capital, forcing him not to return for the rest of his life. He originally thought that he could sit back and relax. Who knew that the Southern Blue Army would suddenly launch an invasion of the border and rapidly encroach on the capital? At first, he rejected the suggestions of the officials and appointed Xiao Rand to let him use this opportunity to establish his prestige. However, he did not expect that the Southern Blue Army had been honing its strength for many years and had a strong army. Xiao Ran had been defeated one after another. Even if he wanted to protect his position as the commander-in-chief, he had to consider the civil and military officials, as well as the country. Recalling Xiao Su was not his wish, but he had to do it. As an emperor, he could not do as he pleased. Sichuan Emperor opened his eyes. After many years of accumulated prestige, his gaze was heavy, like a hibernating tiger that hid its fierceness. "Chao Ji, grind the ink. I want to write an imperial edict." "Yes." Chao Ji immediately stepped forward and spread the bright yellow scroll on the table. Then he stood to the side and ground the ink. He knew that His Majesty was not in a good mood, so he tried to reduce his presence as much as possible. Sichuan Emperor took the weasel brush from the brush rack. His gaze focused, and he began to write. A large piece of writing was written in one go. He picked up the imperial jade seal and put it on. Then he waved his hand and had Chao Ji put it away and ordered someone to issue the edict. Right now, the most important thing was to solve the problem between his eyebrows. Chapter 858. Time flew by, and many things seemed to be on the right track. Once the melon seeds were put into the market, the response was particularly good. They were sold out as soon as they were in stock. Yang Xiaowan had a large stack of orders in her hands, most of which came from restaurants, tea houses, and brothels. As soon as the grape wine appeared, it immediately attracted the attention of wine lovers. Furthermore, the wine signboard included the beauty products for women, so it wasn't only male customers who were buying them. Coupled with the fact that there was a poem about the grape wine in a luminous glass, the wood spirits wine glasses were all sold out. Needless to say, the rest simply caused a buying frenzy. On this sunny day, Chu Qingyan didn't leave the residence. Instead, she gathered the staff for a meeting. The first meeting was about the staff of Whole Foods May, which was related to her snack business. The second meeting was about the staff of Drunken River Flow, which was related to her wine business. The third meeting was about the staff of Jubao, which was related to her casino business. The third meeting was about the staff of Le Xiaoyao, which was related to her brothels. Because her wedding day was coming soon, she had to settle everything before that so that she could set off for Lian City with peace of mind. There were only a few people in each meeting, but these people were the core members of the management team. Some of them were the experts she had found earlier, some of them were experts in mathematics, some of them were calculative women, and some of them were good negotiators. Some of them were saved by her, and some of them took the initiative to join her. In short, these people owed her a favor and were unwilling to leave. Soldiers were trained for 1,000 days to be used in a single moment. This was exactly what it meant. In the beginning, she had never thought that there would be a day when she would take in so many people and use them at such a crucial moment. Later on, Cheng Yin Luo, who had witnessed her growth, couldn't help but sigh. At first, she despised her for being overly compassionate and saving so many people, but in the end, she found out that she had picked up a pile of treasures. Perhaps this was what they meant by good deeds being rewarded with good deeds. The staff of the 4 meetings didn't know each other except for those in their own industry. This was also why Chu Qingyan wanted to be discreet, because these 4 industries were established under another name. Unlike the continuation products, where she used Chu Yan's name to cooperate with Xiao. People said that a cunning rabbit had 3 burrows, but she had 4 and 5. On the surface, she had no relationship with the 4 great clans. This was to ensure her safety in case someone found out that she was the culprit. Although these 4 businesses had just started, and other than Total Foods and Drunken River Flow, the other 2 businesses were still unable to make a profit. The profits of the first 2 businesses were enough to support the foundation of the other 2 businesses. When the time was right, these 4 businesses would definitely be able to occupy a certain position among the people. This was because their advertising and business methods were different from those of this era. They were novel and could move the hearts of consumers. They knew the real needs of consumers. Therefore, sooner or later, they would become popular. Every meeting lasted for more than an hour. She was concise and comprehensive, and everyone expressed their opinions. It was very efficient. One meeting after another, from when the sun was high in the sky to when the sun was setting in the west, all the meetings ended. After every meeting, those stewards would be secretly sent away by her in order to prevent others from discovering their whereabouts and their relationship with the Chu estate. They had been hidden from the start. In the end, even if someone suspected them and wanted to investigate, they would not be able to do so. She did not want to walk in front of the curtains. She did not need too much attention. She only wanted to be the controller behind the scenes. After sending away the steward of the last meeting, Chu Qingyan turned to look at the people standing beside her. Xining, Yang Xiaohuan, Jin Ling, and Su Qi. Did you all understand the meeting just now? Did you all remember the things to pay attention to? She asked lazily. The 4 of them nodded. Yes. Good. Xining, you will be responsible for the connection between Total Foods and delicacies. Xiaohuan, in addition to continuing the management of the products and the connection between Drunken River Flow, Su Qi will be responsible for Le Xiaoyao. Chu Qingyan then turned to Jin Ling. Jin Ling, in addition to the business of the bank, you will also be responsible for the connection between Jubao and Jin Ling. When I find someone, I will take over the business of Jubao. For now, you will have to work a little harder. After all, there are all kinds of people in the casino. Jin Ling's face fell. In such a short time, he was given so much work. It was as if he was going to be split into 2 or 3 people. Could he complain to his master? But he calculated the risks, and it seemed that the feasibility was not high. Maybe his master would not listen to him. Chu Qingyan read his thoughts from his sad face. She rolled her eyes and then said, "There are a lot of things to do in the wine shop. Xiaohuan, if there is something you don't understand, you can discuss it with Jin Ling." Jin Ling's gloomy eyes suddenly brightened. At this time, Xiaohuan nodded in agreement, and his expression changed. Chu Qingyan did not miss the change in his expression and slightly raised the corner of her mouth. Xining and Su Qi saw it clearly. They could not help but silently mourn for Jin Ling. This person was betrayed by their master, and he did not even know it. After explaining everything, Chu Qingyan waved her hand and let them go. She tidied up the account book on the table, then walked out of her meeting room leisurely and walked towards Xiao Su's courtyard. Today, she had completed a big thing in her heart. She could not wait to share it with the ice cube. But halfway there, she was told that he was not in the courtyard and had gone to the tea house. She turned and walked in another direction. She went up the escalator, turned around, and stepped on the wooden plank. Then, she took in the scenery in front of her. A handsome and noble young master in a thin black robe was holding a teapot in one hand and a teapot in the other. The teapot was slowly tilting towards the cup on the tea table. Such an elegant scene, she could not bear to go forward, for fear of destroying the beauty. But in the end, she still went forward. She did not feel thirsty at first, but when she saw such a handsome man, she inexplicably felt her throat itch. No, to be exact, it should be her heart that was itching. Why did you pour 2 cups? Did you know that I was coming? She glanced at the tea table and said in a slightly surprised tone. Xiao put a cup in front of her and raised his eyebrows. Your footsteps. Chu Qingyan understood. She almost forgot that this person had excellent hearing. She took the cup and sniffed it. It was fragrant and pleasant. She took a small sip. It was slightly astringent in the mouth and slightly sweet in the throat. The fragrance lingered in her mouth, and she could not help but ask for another cup. Xiao handed his cup to her. His gaze landed on her satisfied little face. Thinking of her light footsteps just now, he said mildly, Today's meeting should be very smooth. Of course. Don't you know who trained all these people? She wanted him to praise her for training so many people. Indeed, I was the one who trained you. I know better than anyone else. Xiao deliberately ignored her expectation of being praised and replied with a slight smile. Chu Qingyan's face darkened. The ice cube was really narcissistic all the time. Chapter 859. Xiao raised his hand and lightly tapped her nose when he saw her expression. He smiled and said, You're my disciple. You'll only surpass me in the future. His words successfully turned her gloomy mood around. Of course. Then, as if she had opened her mouth, she spoke her mind. Xining had been with her for 5 years. Although she didn't usually ask her to do anything important, she had been influenced by her behavior for many years. In addition to her deliberate teaching, Xining was already different from her peers in the capital. She was usually lively in front of her, but she was confident and prudent outside. In Lianxing, Xining managed the household's affairs with the housekeeper. This time in Jiangnan, Xining was already able to take charge. That was why she handed over a business to her. In fact, it was also to train her. Xiao Huan had studied many business books with her mother since she was a child. With the knowledge from these books and the practice by Jin Ling's side for more than half a year, her ability had been stimulated. She was looking forward to what kind of surprise Xiao Huan would bring her next. There was no need to talk about Jin Ling. He had been managing Big Ice Cube's bank for so many years. His ability was not a problem. Su Qi was a treasure that she had dug out from Jiangnan's Xiao Lai cavalry. Although she was a woman, her ability was not inferior to that of a man. She was good at disguising herself. She could be gentle and strong. She was very suitable to work for her outside. That was why she handed Lu Xiaoyao over to her. She talked until her saliva was flying, and she couldn't stop talking. The person beside her listened carefully and handed her tea from time to time. The two of them sat together and were exceptionally harmonious. After that, she gulped down a large cup of water and turned to ask, Big Ice Cube, what do you think of my arrangement? She said so much because she was actually a little nervous. Before she did anything and before she saw the results, she was not confident in the depths of her heart. However, in front of others, she hid this nervousness very well and maintained her confidence to give them confidence. Only in front of Big Ice Cube would she put down all her defenses and lay out her worries for him to see. Xiao raised his hand and stroked her cheek with his fingertips, wiping away the water stains on her face seriously. After retracting his hand, he said slowly, Your arrangements are all based on their personalities and abilities. There's no problem with the general direction. What you have to pay attention to are the small issues. Whole Foods and Drunken River Style are taking the normal business route. Most of their competitors are open and above board. Other than Jibailai and Happy Carefree, there's no big problem. She had considered all of these. It's indeed difficult for Zhu Baolai and Lu Xiaoyao to implement, especially in the early stages. I'm not worried about their business, but I'm afraid that someone will cause trouble. Although Jibailai was a casino, it couldn't be defined as gambling. The games played inside were different from those in ancient times. Although there were dice games, most of them were brought over from modern times and improved. For example, Do Diju, Ludo chess, jumping pearls, mahjong, volleyball, fitness, and so on. It was very novel. So as long as one had played it before, it would be easy to fall in love with these games. As for Happy Carefree, although it was a brothel, Its main purpose was to sell its skills. The girls inside were basically talented women who were proficient in at least one of the four arts. The customers who entered were flirtatious but not obscene. What she was worried about was that the bosses of normal casinos and brothel businesses would definitely have strong backing. That was why the people who entered would not dare to cause trouble. After all, it could be said that those who came to these places were either rich or powerful. It was also because of this that once people without a strong family background got involved in these businesses, they would be easily ostracized or be hindered by others. If she revealed her identity as Big Ice Cube, no one would dare to cause trouble. However, she could use anyone's identity except for his. Big Ice Cube was already feared by the Sichuan Emperor. If there was a leak or something else, it would be difficult for her to establish a foothold in these businesses. I have a way to ensure that you won't have any worries. Xiao understood what she was thinking. He picked up the teacup that she had drunk from and brought it to her lips. She wanted to remind him that she had just drunk from this cup, but it was already too late. She blinked and ignored the heat rising from her ears. She tried to look at him with a straight face. What way? Borrow someone's name. Who? Xiao. That name is so familiar. Wait, isn't that His Highness the Second Prince? Xiao continued to sip his tea as he admired the changes in her expression. From shock to joy and then to doubt, Chu Qingyan widened her eyes and asked, "Is it really okay to steal someone else's name? Won't I be beaten to death by His Highness the Second Prince?" He dares? Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. Chu Qingyan silently said in her heart, "He doesn't dare to hit you, but he will hit me. Although I think this is a good idea, and I plan to use it, I still feel a little guilty." Chu Qingyan grinned, not showing the slightest bit of guilt. This isn't the first time he's taken the blame, so he's probably used to it. She raised a few questions above her head. He can get used to it. At this time, Xiao slowly dispelled her doubts. Back then, the Su family bank used his name. I just didn't expect that third imperial brother would accidentally find out that I was the one behind it. Haha, I didn't expect you to have such a good relationship with the second prince. Chu Qingyan was completely relieved. When the time comes for you to make a profit, just pick something good to bribe him. He's used to being free and unfettered. If the troublemakers know of his identity, they won't be suspicious and will be afraid. Thinking of this third imperial brother, Xiao still felt a slight headache. Okay. Chu Qingyan readily agreed. But she didn't know that when the time came, she would feel like she had met a big drunkard who wouldn't leave her drunken river flow. After dealing with the big stone in her heart, Chu Qingyan felt that the sky had become clearer, the wind had become gentler, and she felt more refreshed. Big Ice Cube, when I'm rich, let's change our names. You don't want to be Lord, and I don't want to be a princess. Let's just be a pair of leisurely lovers, traveling the mountains and rivers. When we like lively places, we'll walk among the people. When we don't like to walk, we'll find a paradise, fishing, and growing flowers. What do you think? She sat by his side, smiling as she looked at him. Okay. He didn't care if others said that he had to rely on a woman to support him. Hearing such a trusting answer, her heart warmed. Her gaze fell on his face, and the feeling of love that had been buried in her heart all this time surged up. This way, you don't have to wear this broken mask anymore. You can live openly under the sun. What do you think? Her hand touched the tie behind his head. Her fingertips slightly hooked, and the tie was untied. His mask was easily taken off, revealing his peerlessly handsome face. He had always known that her heart ached for him. His eyebrows were like a painting, and his smile was tinged with happiness. Okay. Chapter 860. Shallow joy was a deep love. In Chu Qingyan's heart, what made her happiest was that she often thought about how she would live with him in the future. As for Xiao, the happiest thing was that he would be involved in every plan of her future life. Xiao was not a person who revealed his emotions. However, whenever his face showed some of his inner emotions, it was enough to surprise people. But for Xiao, the only person who could make him treat her sincerely and let his guard down was the person in front of him. Then let's agree that when the time comes, We'll leave everything to Huoling and little Huan, and then we'll be a pair of hands-off shopkeepers." She held her face and made a look of longing, but she quickly put away this expression and leaned over to look at the person in front of her with some emotion. Big Ice Cube, 5 years ago, when I was still in Mao Village, I didn't dare to imagine that there would be a day like today. For years ago, when I was wandering around Junlan, Jiang, and Shang countries and racing with the god of death, I didn't dare to imagine what the future would be like for us. Now, I have a kind of happiness that comes after suffering. As she spoke, she pressed her forehead against his. Her eyebrows curved into a crescent moon, which was very cute. When he heard the 2 words Mao Village, Xiao Su's eyes moved slightly, but the arc was very small. Even Chu Qingyan, who was close to him, did not notice it. "When we get married, I'll tell you a secret." He smiled faintly. "Okay." She nodded. She was not in a hurry to know at this moment. Xiao Su touched her head, indicating that she was very obedient. In fact, what the little fellow said just now also caused ripples in his heart. At the time when the imperial edict was issued, he was gradually feeling hopeless about life. He wanted to exile himself for the rest of his life, but his method was different from Xiao Yao's physical exile. He was exiling his heart. After that, he came into contact with the little fellow and took her under his wings. He thought that since he was the one who had led her into the trap, he should protect her well. He didn't want to see her being bullied, lonely, or wronged. Thus, his numb heart gradually became aware. So he had thought afterwards, in despair. Perhaps, in this lifetime, he would not be able to obtain the warmth of blood. But with this child by his side, perhaps he would not be so lonely. He even thought of raising her as his own daughter. He wanted to raise her and give her the familial love that he had never experienced before. Later on, he realized that she was the one who made him feel the warmth of home, the preciousness of family, and the support and tenderness of love. Gradually, his heart that had been sealed for a long time learned how to open its doors. Quietly, unknowingly, it could not help but welcome her in and take root there. It turned out that all the loneliness was for the sake of waiting for someone. A flower, a world, a leaf, a pursuit, a song, a sigh, a lifetime for one person. He thought that he would never mention these words to her in his lifetime. "Thank you for your hard work while you were poisoned." At that time, he knew that in a place where he could not see, she would secretly cry. This was what the fire spirit had told him. How could that be? Back then, it was because you wanted to save me that you got hit by the arrow. In the end, you were the hero who saved the damsel in distress. While she was praising him, she also spared no effort in praising herself. Xiaosu could not help but laugh. The hardships in the past might have been very painful at the time, but once it was over, thinking back on it, it was all proof of love. Just like how water accumulated into a river and soil accumulated into a mountain. If it were not for the accumulation of those bits and pieces, the two of them would not have interlocked their fingers so tightly. The two of them looked at each other, honest and sincere. She clearly remembered that when they first met, there was always a kind of loneliness in his beautiful eyes that no one else could see. After so many years, she finally worked hard to let the warm light occupy the darkness in his eyes. When his arms wrapped around her shoulders, she took the opportunity to sit on his lap. She leaned on his shoulder and smiled in satisfaction. "Big Ice Cube, have you heard of a saying?" Xiao Su did not answer, because he knew that every time she asked this, she did not want the listener to give an answer. He only needed to listen. You are never alone, because you don't know that in this world, there is always someone who is working hard to walk to your side. Her clear and gentle voice, in this brilliant season, was like a stream that slowly flowed from upstream, suddenly pouring down from the cliff. It was deafening, and the sound knocked on people's hearts. Those who came close felt as if their souls were about to be shaken. Xiao Su subconsciously exerted strength in his arms and pulled her into his embrace. How could he not understand what this little fellow was saying? After so many years of telepathy, he always knew. The person who had been walking towards him was right in front of him. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she leaned on him quietly, enjoying the peace and tranquility of the moment. She remembered that he had once said that a person's life was very long, but one day was one day less. Only by not letting someone down would one not leave any regrets. So she would seize every moment so that she could look back and regret in the future. The two of them snuggled together, spending the last bit of time before the sun set in the west. Xiao Su's gaze fell on the last ray of light on the mountain in the distance. His calm heart suddenly had a trace of unease, and he couldn't help but frown. Feeling the hand caressing her back suddenly stop, Chu Qingyan opened her eyes and asked in a muffled voice, "What's wrong?" "I suddenly can't wait. I want to bring forward the date of our wedding," Xiao Su said in a calm tone. If these words were to be said by someone else, they would definitely be laughed at, saying that he was shameless. But when it came from Xiao Su's mouth, it couldn't be more serious. This was the difference in aura between people. Chu Qingyan was forcefully awakened from her daze by his words. She rubbed her eyes and stood up from his embrace, wondering if she was hallucinating. But when she met that pair of black eyes, she knew that he really did say those words. "What's wrong?" She smiled and asked. "Nothing. I just suddenly had this idea in my heart." His expression was gentle, the ends of his eyes slightly raised, gorgeous and gorgeous, as if he was just casually saying it. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh at him, but Yang Qin said that it's best for girls to get married after reaching marriageable age. "Why are you so impatient?" Xiao Su raised his hand to ruffle her long hair, smiling but not saying anything. She avoided his hand in disgust and tidied up her hair. Regarding his proposal just now, she seriously thought about it, and then said with a smile, "I'm fine with it. You just have to convince Yang Qin." After saying that, she immediately lowered her head, and her face turned red. She didn't care about those red tape. In her opinion, as long as two people were sincerely together, there was no need to care about those things. Xiao Su heard her soft and gentle voice, and his eyes fixed on her. Finally, he sighed softly. "I just said it casually." Then he hugged her shoulder and rested his chin on the top of her head with a pampering smile. How could he bear to let the little fellow feel wronged? Everything that a woman in this world should enjoy, he wouldn't shortchange her. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.